What is up, people of the internet? Welcome back to the How Long to Beat podcast, the podcast by members of the How Long to Beat community and for members of the How Long to Beat community. We are here with season 4, episode 7. My name is Diallo, and I'm joined by, as always, by my co-hosts. We have Matt.
Hello.
We have Roy.
Frozen Roy, brought to you by Drink Products.
And we have Leah.
Hello.
All right. With the release of the Nintendo Switch 2 just around the corner, today we're going to be taking a look back at the life and times and the legacy of the Nintendo Switch 1, doing a little retrospective on that. But before we do that, as always, we're going to start off by discussing the games that we have beaten, retired, and played since the last episode. So without further ado, who wants to kick us off today?
I could kick us off since my being list is kind of small this month.
Then go kick it.
All right. Got 2 games. I'll begin with the sitting with Balatro. I believe I mentioned this last month, but I had Game Pass for a month. So I was trying out games on that. A friend actually then gave me another month because I wasn't quite able to beat and try everything I wanted to. But I ended up playing more of Balatro than I expected, largely because there were some days where I wasn't necessarily able to kind of do the more robust experiences, play for an hour, Balatro, something like that, because I gotta get up and go do something with it. I obviously, since it's a roguelike, beaten is subjective, but I marked it as being after I beat every deck and beat the highest blind once, which I think is a pretty fair way to mark it as beaten. It was pretty good. I would say I was a bit surprised this game was getting an intense amount of Game of the Year hype after playing it.
Yeah.
Because it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's enjoyable. But for one thing, it's definitely not my favorite kind of roguelike of recent roguelikes that came out. I definitely say Slay the Spire and Hades to me felt like more robust experiences that I enjoyed more kind of thing. But also, honestly, I feel like some of its design elements are things that I hear many of the people who were kind of saying Balatro Game of the Year over generic AAA game. I feel like it had kind of mechanics and vibes that fit the AAA kind of thing they dislike in the first place, in terms of some of the presentation, stuff like that, honestly. But that doesn't mean it was bad, obviously. I enjoyed it actually a pretty good amount. I'd say probably the biggest thing is that compared to most roguelikes, it's very simplified. And it's definitely not all too difficult kind of thing. Well, obviously, once you add enough of the blinds and stuff, it'll become difficult. All that kind of stuff. But generally, it was a pretty easy roguelike. I do think part of the Game of the Year hype around is probably that it was very digestible. A lot of people know how poker works. It's easy to understand. It is simple kind of thing. But, I don't know. It was good. I enjoyed my time, but definitely not one of my favorite kind of those chill, idle, able to get up if you have to do some games.
It's actually interesting to for once hear an opinion about this game that's not, full 10 out of 10. It's actually the first time I have heard this opinion.
I feel like it was really a lot of people went really hard on it. I mean, I can't blame them. It's good. But I felt a bit confused by that playing it.
Right.
I will say I'm definitely a Balatro lover. I've had many an evening. Well, it started off as a morning, and then I blink and it's an evening because I've been playing Balatro the whole time. So
I had a few days like that too. I mean, I think I ended up playing, like I said, because I kind of was shoving it in times I wasn't doing anything. I think I have 80 hours in it. But I think one way to put it is this: I probably wouldn't have spent that long in Balatro if I didn't know that once my Game Pass ended, I wouldn't have access to Balatro.
Right.
So it's I might as well play this as my roguelike or able to get up game, because after this month or whatever, I don't have it anymore. Otherwise, I probably would have played Civ 4 or Slay the Spire or Holocure or something.
Yeah, interestingly, the average beat time is actually at 7 hours. So you're playing 80 hours and just now considering it beaten?
No. I considered it beaten at main plus something at 30 hours, and I beat my first run around 7. I have to go look at my
so that
times.
checks out. Yeah.
First run I
Gotcha.
beat was 1 hour, 27 minutes, 22 seconds. And I beat the highest stake and won with Audex at 39 hours, 58 minutes, 50 seconds.
All right.
And then I just played a bunch after I'd beaten everything.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, I need to get on that as well.
But it sounds like I believe that's about all for that game. So now that we've gone for the sinning, we'll go for the saving as I played Run Jesus Run, aka the 10-second gospel.
Hell yeah!
A game I'm sure everybody knows. Definitely not a random ass game. Literally this morning
I have
before
heard
the
of this.
Oh, you've heard of it. Well, there you go. That makes
I'm very
one
curious
person.
to hear about this.
Yeah.
I mean, I will. This might shock you, but the 10-second gospel is very quick, so there's not a ton to say. But honestly, it was just before the podcast. I was like, I should just play a game before the podcast because I woke up 3 hours before the podcast started, kind of thing. What can I play quickly? Well, it says 10 seconds in the title.
Right.
It's really simple. You run to the right, you press the space bar to do Jesus things, and you try to do as many Jesus things as possible in 10 seconds. That's how they describe it.
Yeah.
And it's true.
That sounds okay. I love your description of Jesus things.
Yeah.
Just Jesus
Just
things.
general.
Yeah.
Jesus things.
This game is not, much of anything. Obviously, you really do just run to the right and press spacebar. But it is funny. Just like the presentation, the music is kind of silly. The game intro is run left to right, do Jesus things. 10-second gospel. It was definitely just one of those silly Flash games, because it's a Flash game from 2010 to give you an idea. I enjoyed it, 5 out of 10 game just to fuck around for literally 1 minute and then go on with your life.
Yeah, and the developer has actually done some cool stuff afterwards. I don't know, maybe somebody here knows the Democratic Socialism Simulator, which was a pretty neat card-based
I feel like that's in every itch
game.
bundle.
Yes, it was definitely in there, and that's the same developer. I liked that game.
They also did
Pretty
Green
neat.
New Deal Simulator, Oligarchy,
So
New York
pretty
Times
good
Simulator.
stuff.
But none of them had you do Jesus in 10 seconds, so.
Yeah, the entire New Testament in 10 seconds, probably.
Speedrunning the Bible.
I'll probably finish it in 20 seconds.
Would not surprise me.
Is one of the Jesus things that you do being betrayed and then betrayed by Judas and getting a kiss on your forehead by him?
Well, you don't get kissed, but you do have the Last Supper and then die. So you do get the betrayed by Judas.
Well, at least you get the sleepover.
Right. I've never heard it called that. Amazing.
I feel like I must have missed one Jesus thing anyway, because you obviously the more Jesus things you do, the more apostles you get. I end up with 11, so I must have missed one thing.
Oh,
interesting. Well,
I'm
time for
play
a replay.
this right after this podcast.
Hell yeah!
Well, all of you could easily beat this during the podcast. It literally my second. I did 2 runs. My second run was 17 seconds.
Okay, when you're playing Wordle, I will do this.
This fucked up. Sorry.
Oh, that's right. Have I done Wordle?
Just the radio silence as all the hosts leave to play other video games.
It's how much we love video games. We play video games while talking about video games. Yo, dog.
Oh boy.
It's so meta.
Much wow.
Right, who wants to follow up the Jesus speedrun? Who wants to go next?
I can go because mine is just one game.
But if you beat Jesus, you can do a second game.
It's true.
Oh boy.
We're gonna get to playing, and I'm gonna be like, right now, I am playing Run Jesus Run.
Perfect.
So I beat Bubble Bobble 4 Friends. The Baron is back, which
who?
The Baron, duh.
The Baron.
Bubble Bobble Baron.
Is?
I only know Bubble Bobble from the NES game, and my boyfriend really wanted to play this So I was like, let's see if there's like a new fancy remake version or whatever. And the only one I could find on Switch that was like on sale was this one. So my sister and my nephew were coming over to play games and hang out with us one weekend. And I was like, I bought this for him. We have not played it. We might as well play it. And I didn't realize there was a story mode. And there's like 5 stages or something. And then you're done with the story mode. So I was like, we just finished this game for us in one sitting. But
nice.
It's interesting because there's like boss battles, which I don't know that I beat Bubble Bobble originally in the NES, and I don't know who the Baron is in the first place or why he's even back, where he went in the first place.
Well, Bubble Bobble 4 Friends, there's probably 3 other games. Maybe it's one of the sequels.
Yeah, apparently this is the 4th one because there's another one that. It wasn't, I think when I looked it up on How Long to Beat, they didn't have the Baron is back, but they had like the previous game, whatever. So I just cataloged it as that for now. But yeah, it's just called 4 Friends on here. Oh, the Baron's Workshop is what it's called, what I could find. So I was like, well, I'm just going to log it as that for now until I get all the information and I can actually submit it as an actual game later on.
That makes sense. Baron's Workshop must be the previous one.
Yeah.
There are some completion notes that are mentioning they are playing the Baron is Back version of Bubble Bobble for Friends. So it seems like the same release though.
The different versions. I've got to say, by the way, Matt has looked so boggled through like so many of these games so far.
But not Bubble Bobbled, just boggled.
No, not Bubble Bobble, just boggled, yeah.
Bubble boggled.
I'm still trying to figure out who the Baron is, to be honest. That is baffling to me. Mind boggling.
The storyline was strange and stuff. Like, Bubble Bobble is like 2 little dragon guys that look like they belong in My Little Pony, essentially. And you fight by like capturing your enemies in bubbles and then popping the bubble and they go flying or whatever. But the storyline is like, there's a sorceress that's after you, and like you take over this child's room, and then like every stage is like based on like something in the child's room, and then like you defeat the sorceress or what. And I was like, the sorceress is not the same thing as the Baron, so I'm very confused about. I mean, clearly when you start playing a franchise in the 4th iteration of the franchise, you're gonna be a little just a tad behind on the story, but you know.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. But it was enjoyable, and it also comes with like a arcade version of the original original NES version of Bubble Bobble, so that was fun. Which was weird because you have to like insert coins to play it, and I was like, it's virtual. Like, just I will emulate this without having to add coins. So, I guess that's a cute feature if you're really looking for like immersion of some sort, but I was like, I can just go emulate this and not have to deal with inserting coins.
Fucking coins.
But the authenticity.
Yeah. So that was my one, and I beat it on the Switch, which was interesting because that may be one of the last things that I've played on the Switch. So that goes into our topic for today.
Right.
That's a trivia question for the future. What game was the last game we get beat on the Switch? Do you remember?
All right. Mine will also probably be relatively short, so I can go next if there are no objections.
Nope.
So as the saying goes, all good things must come to an end, and sadly that is the same that applies to Mario's Picross as well. I have beaten that game a couple of days after we recorded the last episode. I knocked out the last couple of puzzles, so I got to see the end of that. Very enjoyable time. Again, I did not expect to get sucked just to fall down the Picross rabbit hole, but it was time well spent, and I enjoyed my time with that game. The other game that I beat is a game that I've mentioned in the previous episode, which is Felvidek. Not too much more to say other than what I said last time around. The final boss encounter felt particularly underwhelming. It was just kind of like a standard encounter, so that was a little bit of a letdown. Overall, I'll say I feel pretty lukewarm about this game. Like, it was a fine time. I didn't dislike it, but I definitely wouldn't go out of my way to recommend it to anyone. Yeah, not too much more to say about that one. All right, the next game that I beat was actually a replay for me, but it is Oxenfree. So the first time I played this game, actually, fun fact, predates my joining HowLongToBeat.com. So it's not in my completions list anywhere. So that would have been somewhere around like 2016, 2017 is that I played this game. It's a little bit of a... Oh, there's the delivery I was talking about. Sorry, give me 2 seconds. I knew this was going to happen.
Nice.
Well, this would be the perfect time for Wardle and Run Jesus Run as Diallo gets his package.
I literally just opened it.
Oh my god.
Go, Matt! Run! Like Jesus!
No, I will not.
Sorry about that. So yeah, I've mentioned a couple times before how I've been slowly over the years building up my tolerance for the spooky, like sort of like dipping my toes into the horror genre a little bit. And while Oxenfree is not full on a horror game, it definitely is a bit spooky. So when I played this game the first time, I was actually living alone and I was too scared to play it alone in my house. So what I would do was I would wait until I had cross-country, like long-haul cross-country bus rides, and I would play it on the bus so that I'd have like, other people around me.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was, it was an experience, but I got through it in the end. So the basic premise of Oxenfree is that you're playing as the protagonist's name is Alex, and you are with a group of some kids in the Pacific Northwest, some fellow teens. You're going to this island for a night of debauchery, but very quickly at the beginning of your night, you end up tuning in the pocket radio that you're carrying around into some paranormal signal, and some weird hijinks ensue from there. Throughout the game, there's some minor... Yeah, there's like some very trippy stuff that happens in this game. I don't think it's a huge spoiler to that there's like some odd time loop stuff that goes on too. Very ooky spooky fun times. There's a lot of puzzling, or there's some puzzling that you do involving your radio and tuning into various signals around the island. I will say, I think what the most notable part about the game, at least for me, is the dialogue system. So most of the gameplay involves walking around the island, and as you're walking around the island, there are conversations that happen between your character and the other characters that you're walking with. And as the conversations are unfolding, you, the player, can see as the conversations are happening, you, the player, see there are these little speech bubbles that pop up, and you can choose what you want the next dialogue option to be. And what's kind of neat about these is that if you wait too long, then the speech bubbles will fade out completely. They'll disappear and you won't get a chance to speak at all. But if you go too quickly, on the other hand, you sort of like interrupt the conversation. But the conversations all feel like very natural the way that they're written. And even when you accidentally interrupt someone, they write it in such a way that like the interruptions feel like they would in an actual conversation. So I think that's a pretty neat and realistic way that they've handled dialogue in this game. Yeah, it's really cool. And it's fun. This is a game that definitely benefits from doing replays, and it's kind of fun seeing, how the different like dialogue options unfold. Like if you choose different dialogue options each time you're going through the game. Also, yeah, so depending on like how you navigate the conversations affects like your relationships with the other cast of characters, and that has an effect on the ending that you get to. So it's a pretty fun game. Again, like I mentioned, this is a replay for me, and it's a game that definitely benefits from being played multiple times. If you know, you know. The reason I play this game, so I mentioned last time, I've kind of been in this mood recently of finishing up games that take approximately 5 hours that have been sitting in my backlog for a long time. And Oxenfree 2 is another game that's been in my backlog since it came out 2 years ago now. And I wanted to get around to that one. And before playing Oxenfree 2, I thought it would be good to freshen up my knowledge of Oxenfree 1. So that's why I felt motivated to do a replay of this game.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, that's that. And then the last game that I beat is a game called Dinner with an Owl, which I learned of as it was recommended. It came up in my YouTube recommendations at one point. It's developed and published by someone by the name of Boring Suburban Dad, which I think is one of the best usernames I've heard of in video game history. It's a very quick little game. The basic premise is that a man visits the house of his prospective business partner, and when he gets to the house, he realizes that said partner is an owl. The owl man invites him to dine with his other house guests, and very quickly you realize that something is not right. It's another game that has a kind of like very intentionally retro graphics. It reminds me a little bit of Courage the Cowardly Dog in the sense that you're in this kind of like old-fashioned stuffy house that feels like it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. And there's like, spooky stuff that's happening. Again, like I mentioned, this is a very short game. You can definitely finish it in under half an hour. And there's not a ton happening in terms of gameplay. It's like more aesthetics, more vibes, I would say. It reminds me a little bit. I think you can make a comparison to, I don't know if you're familiar with the game, You Have to Burn the Rope, but and you have to burn the rope. You do one thing. You have to burn the rope. And this game is a little bit similar in the sense that there's basically one thing that you need to do to complete the game. There's not much gameplay outside of that. But, you know, it's an interesting enough time.
Two options. Burn the rope, do Jesus things. Those are the only two options.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, that was a short and sweet game. It's free if you're curious about checking it out. The biggest reason I mention it is to continue my streak of mentioning games with birds in their title.
Apparently, when I looked up Boring Suburban Dad, he has a prequel, Observatory, which is in a demo. Could be coming out at some point. So. It's
Very
like it's another point-and-click adventure prequel to it.
Oh, yes, I forgot to mention this is a kind of point-and-click adventure game.
Yeah, it says on Steam it's similar to games I've played as Stray and Cult of the Lamb, which I don't think there's anything about those two that are similar. So
it just has conscious animals. That's all.
Definitely not similar to Cult of the Lamb. I've only seen a little bit of Stray, but I would bet a large amount of money that it's not similar to Stray either.
I don't know.
I wonder if it just has the indie tag, and they're both have the indie tag. So it's like, ooh, they're indie games. Yeah. You love those.
They are the same. Yeah.
Puzzle and point and click. Yeah. Definitely how I would describe Stray.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all for my completions.
Then, to finish this, we're going to have Matt, who has quite an interesting list of Pete games.
Yeah. I got
a whole... more than all the rest of us combined.
Matt's menagerie.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And one of them, I'm not sure if it's a typo or the name of the game.
It is not a typo, but I'm not going to start there. We'll get there when we get there. I think I'm first going to check the ones off the list that I've already mentioned in the last episode. One of them being Hooters Road Trip on the PlayStation 1. I mentioned that. I talked about that the last time. I think we also, at that point, also already mentioned that while it is with the Hooters branding slapped on it, it is very much a game that existed beforehand and was just bought up by the Hooters brand to add the advertising element to it. So the game itself still is just not a great racing game, but a pretty solid one, and I had a decent time with it. I beat it pretty quickly after the last recording and didn't really regret it. It's fine. Didn't need the Hooters branding, but it makes it kind of... if it didn't have that, the game would probably not be remembered at all or stand out in any way.
Would you have played it without the Hooters branding?
Exactly. I would have not even picked this up. No, definitely not. But so, yeah, that's not a terrible game.
A symbiotic relationship. Both sides benefited.
Totally. I still don't understand why people regard this as one of the worst racing games ever. It's functional. It works. It's fine.
I'm going to be completely honest. I think it's because of the Hooters branding.
I don't know.
I think people just automatically bucket it as like shitty advertising.
Yeah.
Because of that is more what I'm thinking.
Maybe, but the reviews that I have read, especially contemporary reviews that I've read, they have been complaining about gameplay and technical things, not so much the Hooters brand. So it seems like, at least allegedly, it is about the actual game and not just the branding. But who knows? I don't know. It's fine.
Welcome to the How Long to Beat podcast, where we say Bellagio is not Game of the Year, but Hooters Road Trip is pretty solid.
Exactly. This is the journalism the video game world needs or whatever.
Also, before you go on, I do have to say one more thing. Between Hooters coming up in a random conversation I had with a friend and Hooters Road Trip last month and this month, this is the most I've heard about Hooters in a month, like, ever in my life.
I guess this game, even 20 years later, or more than 20 years, is still working as an ad. I guess you should just go. Eat some chicken wings or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other game that I've already talked about last time is Red Out Enhanced Edition, which is the amazing anti-grav race that I've been rambling about in flying colors. I think already for multiple episodes. I did finally finish the campaign in the sense that I did get the win. Congratulations screen. There would be still there would be still so much more to do because the whole progression system works with a list of events that grows bigger and bigger as you go on. But you don't have to do every single event. You can pick and choose however you want, and eventually you unlock access to the final thing that you could, if you wanted to, just jump ahead to. And if you win that race, you get the congratulation to have it beaten. So really, I could still play probably for 20 hours or whatever if I wanted to do everything in the game. But I don't want to have this game overstay its welcome. I had a very good time, played for quite a while. Still absolutely love this game and regard it as one of my favorite racing games of all time, probably. But for now, I'm done. I have achieved a win condition. I'm considering it beaten, and that's where it's gonna stand for now. Not much more to say about that one.
Sounds like the kind of thing where maybe in the future you just come back to it because you like it, and hey, it'll have some challenges and stuff left.
Yeah, either that, or I'm definitely incredibly excited to at one point play the sequel that exists as well. Definitely looking forward to that. So, games that I have not mentioned before, I have purchased and played Dead or Alive 6, which is, I think the latest in the franchise of scantily clad women fighting each other.
It is the newest one, yeah.
Right, yeah. Although this one controversially has put more clothes on them in an attempt to be taken a bit more seriously.
Shame.
I've watched a bunch of videos about this change in the franchise. It's very funny. But yeah, I just picked it up because Dead or Alive is one of those franchises that just they float around the sphere and you just have heard of them. I never touched one of them myself, but I've been kind of curious. Beat 'em up games, not usually one genre that I dabble much in, but every now and then I try to give it a shot. And Dead or Alive 6 worked just fine. Bonus point for having Ryo Hayabusa, the main character of the Ninja Gaiden series, as a playable character. True. That was exciting. Yeah.
He is in those games.
Yeah. But the game is kind of I played through the campaign mode or whatever it's called, where you can switch between different storylines of different characters however you want in a really weird menu system that I thought was not well done. This was really difficult to see where you at in the stories or whatever. The stories themselves also made no sense, like absolutely 0 sense. I don't know. It was a fine fighting game from what I could tell at least. And I'm glad that I actually made it through the story to call it beaten, considering my lack of skills in this genre. But I don't think this is anything that will stay in my head for long. And I don't think I will return to this.
One thing I'd say is that Dead or Alive 6, even outside of like the clothing design aspect, is generally considered weaker mechanically than a lot of the previous Dead or Alive games as well. It's generally one of the weaker entries of like the mainline games anyway.
Yeah, it was confusing, to be honest. I was kind of looking opinions up and they are so divisive. You could hear the same opinions about any entry in the series, it seems. So I don't even know what to expect.
Yeah, I think it's like Dead or Alive 5 and Dead or Alive 3 are like the best ones. I want to say, people, off the top of my head. Like the
I think I've heard 3 being a favorite, yeah. I might check one of the others out at some point, yeah.
I know 5 has like the amazing like stage transitions where you can grab somebody, dive off a wall, land, explode, and change this and like go to a different part of the stage.
I could see that being a draw here. But yeah, that's that. I guess if I could stay in the fighting game genre with another series of games, I revisited a series of old browser flash games. Back in the days, there was a hugely popular series of flash games and animations called Chow Chow, being, I think, Chinese, meaning small. small. Those were
Xiao
very
Xiao.
popular. Xiao Xiao?
Xiao Xiao.
There we go. Those were super popular stickman martial arts animations and interactive games, all made by the same creator. For a while, like stickman fights were all over the internet, and I'm pretty sure these were kind of like what popularized them. And I remembered them recently and kind of wanted to revisit them. I watched a couple and then played through all the interactive games that came out of that, which are which have the exciting titles of Xiao Xiao number 2, 4, 6, and 9. That's the interactive ones in this series. And it was kind of interesting to see the development, the progress in these different games, because they don't do the same thing, all of them. 2 and 4 are more in the realm of you have an animation with occasional button inputs to test your reaction time or whatever. And measured by that, you get like a better or worse result. Get an animation, a cool animation of the stickmen fighting each other or whatever. And then you either won or not, whatever. It's fine, it's not grand, but it makes for decent the 5 seconds of browser flash entertainment or whatever. Number 6 is much more ambitious, as that one went the rail shooter, the first-person perspective rail shooter route, really having a huge inspiration, an obvious inspiration taken from things like Virtua Cop and other arcade machines. And that one, not only was it impressive to see made in Flash, like these pseudo 3D animations as you go around the buildings and everything, shooting a different stickman with your gun. Not only was it kind of impressive on a technical level, it also just made for an actually challenging and fun arcade-like video game. So that was pretty dope. And then number 9, the final one, was actually what I genuinely expected from these games, because here we have a genuine beat 'em up game where you control a stick figure in a 2D plane, walking around an area and just fighting yourself through hordes of other stick figures. With a nice touch of the environment being a 2000s desktop with a old PC and whatever. So the stickmen are like a miniature size, walking around this desk, and you can not interact with anything, but it's kind of, I just like the perspective of having a little guy fighting through this everyday environment.
It makes me think of animator versus animation.
Yeah. I wanted to mention it as well. Alan Becker, who made Animator was Animation or whatever it was called. I am 100% certain that he was inspired by these earlier Chow Chow animations. I am so sure that
I can believe that.
one to the other. Yeah.
Although the thing is, the first Animator versus Animation was from 2006. So when was the first Jiao Jiao game?
I'm pretty sure these are from earlier. If not, I'm gonna be if not, I'm gonna be exposed for talking out of my ass, I guess. No, it's 2001.
2001, all right.
Yeah. So these are definitely.
Well, then I see Flash Museum say 2000. They're all earlier than 2006. That's what matters.
Yeah, it's really early Web 2.0 kind of stuff. Yeah, it is a shame, because at the time the creator was eventually teasing to a full-fledged like feature release, of this franchise, and I think there was also a demo at some point. He even had success with making commercial advertisements with his like stick figure animations, which was kind of dope. But then, after that, he just disappeared from the internet. Nobody has ever heard anything from that person. It's kind of a shame.
That is a shame, really.
But yeah, there was an interesting like throwback to older internet days. And while I was in the Flash animation, Flash game realm, mostly like scavenging around newgrounds.com, I also played as a one-sentence mention, I played a game called Championship Cockfighter, which is literally a fighting game with chickens. Yeah.
I have to interject really quickly. So on the spreadsheet, the way that the line breaks, I thought that the game title was Championship Cock, because the fighter was on a separate line. It had my full attention.
To be honest, Championship Cock is probably something that exists on Newgrounds as well. That would very well fit that crowd at the time.
And it'd probably get a lot of full attention, too.
It could also be username lore for you.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah. Fuck.
Wait, so if he wins guess the game at the end of the year, is he the championship cock?
Oh. I'm yeah, sure. I'll do t-shirts and everything if that happens.
Merch?
Oh my god. Anyway, to stop this conversation, Championship Cockfighter is a chicken fighting game. Very simple, of course, since it's a flash animation. And unfortunately, it's 2 players only. So I have it like somewhat in this beaten category, but really it's debatable if there's anything beaten, because I really just beat up a player character that wasn't controlled by anyone.
Yo, I could hop on at some point. We could play some matches.
I don't think it has online servers or whatever. Otherwise, I would be
down. One way to find out.
just have your left hand fight your right hand for dominance.
Right.
All right, Google Championship Cockfighter online.
Oh my god, that is not happening. Anyway, I didn't even want to say anything more about that. A much more worthy Flash game to talk about is the one that you mentioned earlier, where you were wondering if there was a typo in it, but this is, it's a weird thing. The game is called Time for Cuck. So the word fuck is intentionally misspelled. And in fact, you could argue this game has like 5 different alternate titles, because on the Newgrounds release page, every single time the title of the game is mentioned, it is misspelled in a different way by the creator. I don't know, probably half as a joke, half as a maybe funny sort of censorship or whatever. I don't know. This is made by the creator of Super Meat Boy. Before Super Meat Boy, what's his name? Edward McMillan. Does that sound right? Sorry, I need to make sure
isn't
about
that
this.
Also the I think that's also the Binding of Isaac
Edmund
guy,
McMillan.
Yeah.
Yes, the Super Meat Boy and Binding of Isaac guy. Time for Cuck was a Flash game he made shortly before the retail release of Super Meat Boy, I believe. And it is
Sorry.
And it is fuck. And Time for Cuck does show the talents of this indie developer even before his actual commercial success. This is a very, very clever puzzle platformer where you shift between layers of the map, so to say, and have to. Yeah, I don't know. There's no better way to describe it. It's a very well-made puzzle platformer where you manipulate the entire environment around you at the press of a button, and then have to figure out how to get through it without dying or whatever. Edmund McMillan seemed to have really liked to do games where people could create their own levels as well. So it seems like this one has a level editor, and with each installment that was uploaded back in the days, he included user-made levels as like bonus packs and whatever. I only played through the actual story mode, the campaign, and it was very fun. This is a game that I could have seen gaining a retail release itself, just like Binding of Isaac and Super Meat Boy did eventually. But you can play it for free on newgrounds.com, and I actually recommend it if you're into puzzle platformers.
I might just consider that.
It's a good time.
It sounds fucking nice.
Oh my god. Okay. Dope. 2 more games, then I'm done with my rambling. A new racing game that I've tried, that I've played after finishing the other ones. It's getting warmer, so it is time to switch to aquatic racing games. That's how my brain works. In winter, it's the snow racing games. Now that summer is coming closer, it is the aquatic racing games. Aquamoto Racing Utopia, which is a jet ski racing game made by the developers of a snowmobile racing game I've mentioned episodes earlier. They made Snowmoto Racing Freedom, which was fine but not great. When I played that one in winter, I kept reading reviews of people saying Aquamoto Racing, which they made before, having been the better game from the developers. And having played that now, I can absolutely see why. Unlike the Snowmoto game, this one actually has personality and creativity. The different track environments actually have recognizable set pieces. It all looks very pretty as well, with all the not like super realistic high fidelity graphics, but it feels like a GameCube game in a good way. It very much has that sheen and color of a GameCube game.
Wave Race Police Storm energy?
It definitely gave that sort of vibe, which was dope as heck. And it's pretty quick playthrough. I think I've played for like 3 hours or whatever and made it through the campaign. Very much a fun racing game. Don't really have any complaints or anything special to point out, but I do actually recommend this if you're looking for a jet ski game that's easily available on Steam and whatever. It's a good one. And the final game that I've beaten just a couple days ago, I have finally tackled Ninja Gaiden 3, The Ancient Ship of Doom on the NES, which is the final of the original Ninja Gaiden trilogy, back when it was still a hardcore precision platformer series. I think I've previously mentioned that I adore number 1 and 2 more for the platforming. The boss fights I have some gripes with, but the platforming Ninja Gaiden is grade A stuff, and I love playing those. With Ragebound coming out later this year, I needed to finish this trilogy, so I finally picked Ninja Gaiden 3 up. Though this was a weird experience. I started by playing the American release of this game, and noticed that it doesn't have infinite continues anymore, which with a game as hard as Ninja Gaiden is really strange, and the previous games did have infinite continues. But here with this one, if you die enough, you just get booted to the main, to the title menu, and it's over, and that's bullshit. I was
gonna bet you were like, fuck that shit.
For real, I was, didn't shy away from using save states at some point, but even then it just sucks because you obviously it's just a mess. And I played through a couple of the acts doing it with the US NES version, but eventually found out that the Japanese version of all things is actually much easier, which I feel like most of the time is the other way around. But in this case, the Japanese version actually does have infinite continues, and it even has a password system where you can just continue from whatever level you want to. I assume the Japanese version was considered so easy that the developers thought they had to make it harder in version 2. That's why the American version is more difficult. And having then switched to the Japanese version from the US version, it was genuinely a shocking change. Not just because of the infinite continues that you now have, which make the game so much more forgiving and the grind actually, bearable.
Horrible.
Yeah, but there's also little changes in the level design where some characters, some NPCs were removed or like put somewhere else and whatever. And all of a sudden, because I replayed one act that I had already played in the US version, I replayed it in the Japanese version to continue from there. It was so weird when all of a sudden the most difficult NPC encounters in that level were all just gone. Literally the couple of moments we had the most problems with were all of a sudden not a problem anymore because one character was removed or an item was placed somewhere else. It was fascinating to see how the game was changed, how it was switched up for the US release.
It's weird stuff.
Yeah, but I continued playing the Japanese version to beat it then, and it does genuinely feel like if you're just going for the Japanese releases, Ninja Gaiden 3 is probably the easiest of the entire trilogy. I didn't really mind that though, it's still challenging. And towards the end, the final boss fight is, as always, complete and utter nonsense. The final boss fights in the Ninja Gaiden games are always the most unforgiving nonsense that I could never do without save states. So I didn't shy away from doing that here as well. But the way to those boss fights is always very enjoyable, and I'm so glad I switched from the US version to the Japanese version to actually make it a fair challenge and not this outdatedly hard, unforgiving version. But yeah, I'm glad to have finally finished this trilogy of games. A trilogy of games that I years ago thought I would never even dare to touch because of its infamy in how difficult it is. But yeah, it's fun that I finally dared to do them a couple years ago, and they have actually genuinely grown to be some of my favorite retro games of all time. So I guess if you want to have a moral at the end of the story, dare to play a game that scares you. It might turn out to be a life-changing experience or whatever. It's pretty dope.
That's a beautiful lesson.
Yeah, I'm very in favor of broad horizons for games, so.
Hell yeah. But yeah, that was my marathon rambling, so that's all my beating
I'm actually
games.
curious. I actually wanted to say one thing, but before I do, I'm curious. Of the 3 NES Ninja Gaidens, which is your favorite?
Yeah, I've been wondering about that as well. It's tricky. I would probably just say the first one. Number 1 and 2 basically are the same game, but 2 adds a couple more gimmicks to shake it up, which work some better than others. But essentially, when it all comes down to it, they are both just very good games. I couldn't really say take one or the other. Just start at the beginning, I think, with number 1.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or do number 3, since it is, at least the Japanese version, definitely the easiest out of the whole trilogy.
Oh yeah, you could ease yourself into it, go 3-1-2.
If you wanted that. But yeah, I would recommend just doing number 1. It's more forgiving than you think up until the final boss. That's the only real problem, where you should use save states to keep sane.
And then, just the one thing I wanted to say is I do remember back in the day that American releases would up the difficulty of various games from Japanese releases because of like arcades and stuff. Like
oh really?
A lot of working designs translated RPGs, for example, have like increased difficulty compared to the Japanese version. I remember Rocket Knight Adventures is a weird one. In the easy mode in the American release that doesn't get you the true ending is the normal mode of the Japanese version with like 7 lives and 3 continues. And the normal mode of the American release, which is like 3 lives and 1 continue, is like the hard mode of the Japanese release.
Interesting. I thought it was more common for the Japanese one to be the true difficulty, and then for the American one it being softened or something.
That's true for some games, like Mega Man, I believe, had that happen. But there's a lot of games where they were like, Americans like hardcore difficulty, make it harder.
Okay. Damn. Yeah, well, they fucked it up with Ninja Gaiden 3. That was not a fair challenge,
3.
yeah.
Streets of Rage 3 is one where a lot of people say play the Japanese version because the American version kind of butchers the difficulty like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. There you go. There's another one then. Yeah.
Once again, the third entry as well. Anyway.
Yeah, I guess it's time for the retired / paused section, which we only have one person having any titles in this one, so this is all you, Leah.
Let's go.
all right, this is gonna be interesting. Nier, I was enjoying, but I got up to a part where I kept dying and I couldn't figure out how to get through it. And it is in my backlog, and I will get back to it at some point. But I was only really trying to barrel through it because it was Game of the Month at the time. So now that month is over, the new month started, and I was like, okay, I don't have time for this right now. I'm gonna put this back on the backlog.
Makes sense.
For later.
Can I ask what the part was that you got stuck on?
I honestly, I don't remember. I just remember there was it's one it's very early on, but it's like maybe the second mission or so where I was like, I keep dying and it keeps sending me back, and I was like, it was getting to the point where I was gonna break my disc. So I was like, I'm just gonna quit, and I will come back, because I was like enjoying it up until that day. So I was like, you know what? I was like, this isn't worth being this angry about. So I was like, I'm gonna put this to the side very slowly before I chuck it out the window.
That's a good time to take a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next two, Hollywood Story and RuPaul's Drag Race, I only came across these because while Diallo was talking about the Kim Kardashian game last episode, and I was like, you know what? I really miss that sort of like mobile game. I was like, I wonder if there's anything like that, currently. So I found there's another one also, Influencer Story, but Influencer Story I think is more akin to what the Kardashian games were like. Hollywood Story was kind of like the rip-off version of it, and RuPaul's Drag Race is kind of a little bit more like an idol clicker at times. So like, I really liked Drag Race, but Drag Race, basically like you start off with like, you make your own drag star, and then you just have to put her in outfits and win the competition. But it's so easy to know what to wear, because as you put on different items on them, the points go up, and like the 2 tags that you need. So you can just filter to those tags and just click around until you get the highest score. And then you're like, there, that's your outfit. So after like 3 rounds of it, I was like, this isn't actually any skill whatsoever. I just click. Yeah. And then like to open, like you have to open the wigs, and like I even forgot there was like a hunky dude on the side that's supposed to help you out, like in the back.
A hunky dude.
Yeah.
My favorite game feature.
Yeah. But there was like a few of them, and like in order to do that, you just had to like keep tapping on it, and then you're like, now you've opened it, and I was like, all right, this is not gameplay for me. So after
it is gameplay at all.
Yeah. So after a few days of playing, like I really appreciated the art style and like the, like some of the more famous. I've never watched an episode of Drag Race, but I know some of the drag queens' names. So like Trixie's there, and Katya.
Hell yeah.
So So I was like, oh, I recognize like some of these names, but other than that, I was like, this is not actually building up to a story. So like after not opening that for a few days, I just uninstalled it. Hollywood Story, it kind of
but before we move to Hollywood Story, I have a little anecdote about the Drag Race mobile game. So I am someone who does watch Drag Race. I've been watching it since 2018, and I watch it like pretty religiously. So when this game first came out, I also wanted to give it a try, and I'm a free to play player with like most games that I play, especially for like mobile games that are designed to be more of cash grabs. I was having enough time, trying on the different outfits and everything, making my own drag queen, mix and match and accessorize in, to seeing that walk, etc., etc. But what turned me off of the game completely was that there was one event that happened at one point, and like you mentioned, so it's kind of like tap to win kind of games.
Yeah.
And like if you pay money, then like you tap to win faster or whatever. And then there was an event that was going on, and I was trying to grind it to the best of my ability, but I wasn't making much progress. And then I went onto Reddit, and I saw someone had crunched the numbers and realized that if you're not paying to win, and maybe it's changed like since the game's inception, but at the time that I was playing it shortly after release, if you weren't paying to win, it would have taken you something like literally the number of time, the time would have taken you to max out the number of points you need to max the event was longer than the event itself if you're not paying to win. And it was something like egregiously outrageous. I think it was something like if you're not paying, it's going to take you like 13 IRL years to complete this one event that only lasts for like IRL weeks. Like the numbers are. It was very much a pay-to-win, cash grab type of thing, and I was like, yeah, if they're not going to make it accessible for free-to-play players, then bye-bye.
Yeah, no, I mean, my boyfriend plays a lot of these, like, not this game, but, like, he plays a lot of, like, mobile games where, like, he ends up just giving up because he's like, everything is pay-to-win, I don't want to do that,
right.
Like, whatever. Like, he'll throw, like, maybe $1 or something at certain points, and then he's just like, no, this person's paying $40 in this game. He's like, no, for that I just buy an actual game. So...
yeah.
But my closest thing to that is when I was playing Avengers Academy, which was like my favorite mobile game at the time. And I remember on the Reddit, some event started and somebody was like, if you wake up at 4 a.m, you can beat this event by the end, without paying. And I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And I was like, I didn't even want to like complete the event. I was just like, if I can buy these 2 characters out of the 8 that are available, I will be happy. And then like I could barely get 1, and I was like, no, this is not fun anymore. So
yeah.
But yeah, I since then I see that pop up in all of these things where it's just like, if you want to scrape by, you can maybe get some of the event done, but not all of it. And it's like, no, that's ridiculous. But yeah, Hollywood Story also wants to be the Kim Kardashian game, but it just like the story is like, oh no, you're living in like this Brooklyn brownstone and you have to get to Hollywood. And it was just like so catty in the way that everybody was talking to me, and I was like, this is unfun immediately. Like, I know that she's trying to make it in Hollywood, but you don't need to like talk down to me immediately. So
I love it. It doesn't offer like the fantasy of like, making it to Hollywood. Being nice. It's like people will step on you.
Yeah. Like, at least be like, oh wow, we see some star quality. No, they were like, you're wearing that to the event? Ew. And I was like, I just got here. Like, what's going on? So yeah. So I gave up on that one.
Awesome.
And in a complete spin on things, in real life, I had for the next game, Stardew Valley. I've never been able to get into because there was I always have like anxiety at the fact that like every day you wake up and it's like another day that you're on this farm or whatever, and I was like, I need to finish everything in the 4 years or whatever that this game gives you, and people are just like, you can just do whatever, like you can't fail. But I was like, no, I need to do everything possible.
Oh gosh.
So like the anxiety of it, I was just like, I can't. Like, I remember playing Harvest Moon when I was younger on the SNES, and even like forgetting that there was a festival the next day, I was like, oh no, I have to unsave, I have to like reset my save and like not. So I was like, I can't play Stardew Valley, cannot do it. But this last month we had a chicken show up at our house recently, and so I was like, what if I just played Stardew enough to get like chickens in the game? So I did that. And we had her for like a few days, and now that chicken is no longer in my real life. So now I've retired Stardew because I don't want to.
Oh man!
I don't want to have to open it and see the chicken in there again. So, so yeah.
Rest in peace to that chicken.
Yeah. So I it's still on my. I'm playing it on mobile, so it's still on my phone because I'm like, maybe I'll open it in a few weeks and be like, at least the chicken is alive in here. But But yeah, I was like, I don't know. I was like, in a way, I was like, this might be my motivation to finally play Stardew. And I was like, if only for this one chicken. But I was like, I'm still like, I should just uninstall this. So I'm like, right now it's paused. It could be completely the end of Stardew forever for me. We'll see.
Oh, that's a rough spot to be in.
Yeah. The funny thing is that I also have the like chickens and llama DLC for Sims. So I put her in the Sims. So now I'm like, I don't know if I would ever open Sims again now. So, but yeah, we'll see. As time goes on, it might get a little easier.
Yeah, hopefully.
But yeah, I think what I might actually do is just play Harvest Moon again, because now apparently that's on Switch, so I can do that. And that was always a more fun game for me to play than Stardew, because Stardew I think has too many options. Whereas Harvest Moon is just like, you have your farm, and there's people that you talk to, but you don't really have to interact with them. And I was like, this is very streamlined and easy.
Yeah, I could see that for sure as well.
So yeah, that's our completed retired section for this.
Yeah, all of us, we all contributed. We all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone else stuck out on their game.
Well, some of us finish their plate, some of us don't. So no judgment, but
yeah, I just put everything in a go box and then tossed it in the trash.
yeah.
Ready to go.
All right, what are you playing right now? Who's playing the greatest games here?
Oh,
anybody want to brag with a cool experience?
Well, first off, I continue to be playing Wordle. Very important. I got Wordle in 4 during the podcast earlier, as you may have heard me accidentally say while Matt was talking.
Yeah.
Current streak 715. So
goodness
feeling
gracious.
pretty good about that. Let's see.
One day you will fall, and the whole world will laugh.
One day I'll fall and I'll be on the podcast decimated on my knees.
We'll do a full hour-long episode talking about why Roy's Wordle streak broke.
Oh my
Full
god.
analysis.
It's just gonna be because your phone died on you in the middle of the Wordle.
Oh, I do it on my computer.
Oh, a storm happens then. I don't know.
Oh, true. Rainstorm powers out.
I think it saves your progress, though. I think you can return to it.
If you miss a day, your streak ends.
Oh, right, when you miss the whole day. Right. Okay, no. Now I get it.
Let's see. I played Civilization 4 as another game, but I was just waiting around kind of thing. Technically, I could have put this in beaten because I finished a full game, but Civilization 4 realistically just perpetually played, and if we talk about just being a game, I've been it 50 trillion times kind of thing. Not much to say. I did win. It was a bit of a late win. Could have done a bit better, but...
Oh, well.
Summon Night Swords the Craft Story. I'm still mostly just playing that with a friend of mine. We've probably gone through about a third of the game. I've mentioned before, it's my favorite game right now. Still good, like I remember it. Enjoying myself a lot. This is their first time. They're enjoying the characters a lot. The combat system, not the most complex. So they're feeling more like a 7 or 8 out of 10 as they go along. Unfortunately, last time we played, they lost a fight and they hadn't saved for like an hour. They thought they had saved, but they hadn't. So they lost like an hour of progress. So they had to replay that. Fortunately, that's not that much, but that one is just kind of chugging along, going well. Always good to return to Pratty. Always good to get crafting stuff, fighting. Sacred Stones, I'm not going to talk about too much. It got added to Nintendo Switch Online, which I've wished that was added there for a long time after they had said it would be on there, because I enjoy playing it on my Switch where it can be mobile, Fire Emblem in general. But I'm using like all my save slots in Fire Emblem 6 for either a game with a friend that I'm not doing right now, or like an Iron Man run that I don't necessarily want to go back to. So I was looking for something I could just kind of start more easily. So I haven't played much of this run, but I've just gone through like the first 5 or 6 maps. Wake up, don't feel like getting out of bed, play like 30 minutes of a Fire Emblem map, go on with my life kind of thing. For the 2 games that might actually get a bit more discussion, although one of them I haven't played far enough in to say, but I'm very excited to, which I will probably be talking about more next month. Clair Obscure Expedition 33.
This is a game that I was hoping to have started by this episode, but I've caught up with my other things. I haven't gotten around to it, so I'm excited to hear because it's been getting a lot of positive buzz in my circles.
Yes. Well, I'll say this. I've admittedly only played about an hour. I basically played through the opening segment, which, there's a very clear delineation of oh, this is the opening segment, this is where the game begins, kind of thing. The opening segment's very good, though, I gotta say. It reminds me kind of like the start of Final Fantasy IX with the festival, with the theme and energy of Final Fantasy X kind of thing. I'm very excited for this one. The combat system seems very interesting. Very turn-based, but it's got kind of that Legend of Dragoon Paper Mario Action Command vibe. The way that items work in this game looks pretty interesting. You kind of don't pick up a bunch of usable items. You pick up items, and once you have that item, you have X usable amounts per battle. So it's kind of like a limit per battle system. So using your parries and dodges very effectively to avoid damage seems like a very big part of the gameplay, just from a few test fights and a the one boss I fought, basically. It's a very good-looking game that my computer probably would not be able to run if I wasn't streaming with Game Pass, frankly.
Oh.
The voice acting is quite good at the start. I like the script. Again, I'm only like an hour in. I can't really say much complex about the game. But this is a game I'm going to be planning to beat pretty quickly after this. I've got to get through like the last bit of Persona 3 Reload first, but after that, I'm looking at this, Sea of Stars, Hypnospace Outlaw, stuff like that. But I'd say, Diallo, if you do get into it, I'll be interested in your thoughts, because I have like 3 friends who've also played this game, and they all really, really liked it.
I will say I'm expecting this to be on my beaten list by next episode, so let's see if we can hold me to that, but...
Yo, hell yeah. Let's do it. We could double up, you know?
I think that will be the first time that we'll have 2 people who have had the same game on their beaten list on the same episodes. That would be a kind of interesting thing.
That might be true. I know Leah and Matt, I think, have had like similar ones on their playing list because like it was the itch games or something, but I don't fully remember. Because there's definitely been times everybody completed like the Itchmas game, I believe.
Right. I guess I wasn't counting Itchmas.
But yeah, those are kind of
Which is coming up soon.
Oh yeah, it's in July. It's coming.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was about to say we're not that close to December. Like, is my conception of time that off? Okay.
Holy shit, Santa's coming already.
Hell yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't realize Itch in July was a thing. So.
That face immediately lit up when he heard Itch. And now the game I'm going to probably ramble about way too long, which I'm about 85 hours in, and I'm on the last month of. It's Persona 3 Reload. If you remember the first episode, Persona 3 FES is one of my like favorite games ever. That's really important to me, and it's one of my things in the background of the episodes, kind of thing. So I was really excited to get to Persona 3 Reload. Really was curious what kind of remake this would be. And now that I'm down to the last month, I feel pretty confident saying that while I don't know if I prefer this game to FES, I feel like it is on the same level of quality, but with like some bizarrely distinct strengths and weaknesses. Because this is like, it's not like a remake in the sense of like Final Fantasy VII remake, but it is a remake kind of thing. You know, the battle system is still like similar, but it's different. The overworld, at least the dungeon, I should say, the like part where you walk around, that's similar, but the dungeon is pretty different, stuff like that. I feel like this game's combat is interesting, how it's different from the original. There's a lot more like things to do in this version. There's like super moves, more items, more abilities, stuff like that. But I gotta say, this version, unlike the original, which is very hard in a way, enjoy, this game gets pissed easy after a certain point, and it's never that hard to begin with, which, for a like Shin Megami Tensei Persona game, does feel maybe not what I'm looking for. I would like to get more challenged. I even bumped the difficulty up to hard. I've only game overed maybe 2 or 3 times in like 85 hours. And like one of them I'm pretty sure I just misclicked, kind of thing. Once you kind of get like a physical persona with a few abilities, you kind of just breeze through every single random encounter. Bosses are pretty heavily nerfed. In particular, they tend to either lower the amount of enemies that are in a boss fight, or replace like 2 parts of the bosses with basically bozos kind of thing, more minion-y kind of guys. I do think that is probably my biggest complaint about the game, frankly. It is too easy for what I am looking for. It's not like it has to be, so super difficult. But I'd like to be a bit more challenged and have more challenge, because that would give me more reason to use some of these mechanics, is how I would put it. It's a bit too mindlessly easy, I guess I could say. I also do feel this game loses some of the aesthetic of the original. The original has these very dark, moody, very well animated, like hand-drawn cutscenes. This game replaced multiple of those with in-engine cutscenes that do not carry the same weight. You know, like I could show like just a little bit of comparison videos, and you can kind of see that kind of thing. I think that was really disappointing, especially because like not all of them are like that. And they actually added a few animated cutscenes where there weren't previous ones. But I feel like they added those cutscenes on scenes where it really wasn't relevant or as necessary, and they probably should have put the cutscene effort in a different place. So, in my opinion, those are like the two kind of main downsides. But the flip side is that this game also does a lot of good things. They've added a significant amount of character content with like study sessions at not only like the test points, but generally critical story points where the main point is really just there's a bunch of dialogue and character interactions of how they're dealing with recent events. There's linked episodes with the main male characters that in the original there weren't social links or anything, so you kind of didn't have that kind of aspect. And some of them are really good, like Shinjiro's is particularly, I think, relevant for showing him, Mitsuru, and Akihiko's relationship in a deeper way than the original did, kind of adding some depth there. Junpei's is good. There's multiple activities you can do with the characters, and those also shed more, like, not shed more light, I shouldn't split it like that. They add interaction that does show a bit more depth to the character. They tend to all be pretty well written. Maybe some of Akihiko's get a bit to the like Persona 4 arena flanderization he had, but nothing too bad. It's all really well done. There are some parts of the script I like more in the original, and like Takaya has a way better voice actor, but Fuka has a way better voice actor in this, and there are also a lot of good script punch-ups at the same time. What else is there? Like, the dungeon changes. I feel like there are parts of the original I like more, and the original definitely has more dungeon atmosphere, in my opinion. But this one does also have probably better explorative element. For example, they add multiple new scenes for like Strega as villains and some other characters who did not necessarily get as much time in the original, and that also helps give a little bit of fleshing out. It's interesting. It's very similar in overall quality, but it has a lot of very different tack in how it gets there, I guess is how I would put it. As you can probably guess from the fact I probably spoke for about 4 minutes uninterrupted, I've really been enjoying my time with the game.
I would hope so.
I'm on the last month. I'll see how they do that, because that's a critical part of Persona 3 in terms of vibe and energy. It's been pretty good. I'm gonna probably finish that like in the next 2 days or so, hopefully, and then I'll get to like Expedition 33, Sea of Stars, and some other stuff. But very, very well worth the Game Pass time. Once again, literally anybody who cares about RPGs at all, I recommend Persona 3 to them. This Persona 3 Reload is probably the more accessible version to most people. It has more modern convenience features. It has, easier difficulty and more modular difficulty. It has more accessibility features. So I'd say for most people, Reload is a good way to go, but I do think the original has some seriously good stuff.
Good point to end on, with seriously good stuff. Alright, I guess that's all your beaten games, huh?
That's all my playing games.
Oh, you're playing games, sorry. Gosh.
WB in the future, just like Run Jesus Run.
Just like Run Jesus Run. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I guess, Leah, would you like to reveal your secret?
Yeah. While we were taking a break, I played Run Jesus Run, and I also
This is wild.
I also ended with 11 disciples, so apostles.
Where is that secret 12th apostle?
Damn.
I played it again, and then I got 8, so I missed somebody both times, multiple times. So,
well, to even that out, though, you got the 13th apostle right here, because Judas was replaced by Saint Matthias, and that's my name, so you can count that in your Run Jesus Run game.
I was assuming that. Yeah, I'm assuming that it should have been 11 to begin with, because, like, I guess they're not counting Judas. But then, when I played it again, I got less, and I was like, wait, so I did something.
I've kind of thought maybe the first
to get 11,
some way to
so
get
I have no idea.
because otherwise it's just like a jump. you don't really do a Jesus thing on that screen.
Yeah. So I'm very confused.
The game works in mysterious ways and all that.
Yes.
Matt, Diallo, there's still time to finish it while Leah goes through her playlist.
No thanks.
I will respectfully decline.
There you go.
Okay, so the first game on my list is the Falconeer, which was the game that Matt selected last time. I think I played like about 45 minutes to maybe an hour on it so far. It's enjoyable. I'm not sure too much about the story of it, but the mechanics are fun. The gameplay is fun, and you're playing with birds, so
what else?
Top-notch game in my opinion. But yeah. The only weird thing is that when you start off, you're creating your character, and they just kind of shuffle through names for them. But there's like a female and a male, and then there's like different skin shades, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go through all of them. As you do in a character creator, just go through all of them, and then go back to like the two that you like and decide on those. But they keep shuffling the names. So if you go back to the face, it's a different name. And then I was like, I don't know. Like, I would be like, okay, I'm going to come back to Thomas. And then come back later. And that Thomas is a completely different skin shade and name. And I was like, what? Like,
okay.
So eventually I just had to be like, all right, decide which, just go by either name or like skin or gender for my person. Because they'll be completely different when I come back around. So, I went through the tutorial stage. And like, it's been a while since I've played like an aerial
combat
like simulator sort of a game, other than like Star Wars games. So it was fun to be like, oh yeah, this is what it's like when you're not playing, you're not shooting with like lasers. And you actually have like artillery and ammunition to worry about. So that was a little bit of a like learning process, I guess, for me to remember like, oh, I have to like conserve my ammo again. I can't just go willy-nilly, just shoot everything. Some of the targeting is a little weird, where it would like decide where, like, oh, just go over there, and I'm like, okay, cool. But like 5 things are also yellow that are glowing, so I'm like, I don't know which glowing thing I'm supposed to be going towards.
Right, yeah.
And then the perspective was a little strange because it was just like, oh yeah, it's highlighted on top, and I'm like, I think that's the target, but there's also something that they're alerting me to over here. So I go to that, and they're like, you need to go to the target. And I'm like, I thought I was going to the target. I will turn around and go back. So yeah, but also like the storyline is interesting. Like I mean, just the 2 factions that we're up against, like your side and the enemy side. There's not a lot of, I guess, like intelligence when it comes to the way they're fighting. They're just like, they're coming, and they're just gonna keep coming regardless, and until you like knock them down. So I'm like, oh, okay. So hopefully that gets a little harder as time goes on, because a lot of it was just like I couldn't just keep shooting because nobody's shooting back at me. But like, okay, but yeah, I am enjoying it so far. I don't remember. I think it's like a 7-hour game or so. So we'll see when I hop back into it next month. Whether I continue with it or not. But so far I'm enjoying it.
That's good at least, yeah.
Yeah. Super Metroid was another one that I was recommended to play after I finished Zero. Or didn't finish Zero as it was. So I've been enjoying that one. The graphics are cool. It seems a little less, well, I mean, Zero also wasn't too complex at first, so we'll see how that. Also, I think I played like about 30 minutes or so, and then my Switch was dying, so then I had to charge it. Yeah, I'm excited to play at least more Metroid games just to be a little bit more versed in that world now that I've jumped in for the first time finally and made a serious effort of it. So there's that. Infinity Nikki, I'm still playing even though the fan base is melting down.
Oh yeah?
Because of this.
It's the drama.
There's some new update that they added which I don't even pay attention to any of the events or any of the dresses that open up or whatever. I'm just playing for story. So if I get something, I'm like, cool, put it on now, see what it does, whatever. But the people who, again, have been trying to play without paying for anything have just been, the new event apparently has, to get the dress, there's like 11 pieces where it used to be 5 pieces. So they were like, there's no way for you to get all of the pieces or like all of the pulls or something. I don't know. Before you to get all the pieces possible before the end of the event. And they were like, there's no way that, if you're trying to be a hardcore gamer about this, there's no way that you're going to be able to do it without paying money. So people are upset about that.
Hardcore Infinity Nikki gamer.
And they're getting review bombed and everything, and people are upset. But yeah, meanwhile, I'm just over here just running around trying to find outfits that will give me new abilities. So
there you go. You're doing everything right.
I'm doing the chill run of this game.
Yeah.
So also very chill is my playthrough of Ghost of Tsushima, which I was supposed to have finished like 3 months ago to give back to my dad. But still going on that one, still running around all ancient Japan. But I really want to finish this before Ghost the sequel comes out. So chugging along on that one as well. Connect Word is a mobile game that I downloaded because there was in my nostalgia run of mobile games, apparently, I was looking up.
Oh boy.
There was a game I used to play called 7 Little Words. And so I'm pretty sure that's still around also. But in trying to remember the name of it, I just put in word game, and that popped up Connect Word. And I think there's a New York Times version of this game that people have been playing on Twitch, where they just give you a bunch of, there's 4 words in a row, and you have to figure out which 4 words go together. So like, it'll be like orange, blue, red, and then cow. So then you have to find where, the other color is to make that row complete, and then find where cow fits in with something else. Like it could be just farm animals, it could be, bovines or whatever. So I played that for a while. I think is it still installed? I have no idea. I've not been playing it. No, I finally did uninstall it, so this should really be retired, but but it is enjoyable. It's my sort of kind of puzzle game. The levels go beyond just like, sometimes you'll do a set of 4 and it'll condense into an icon, and then you have to figure out what that icon has to do with 3 other things to make another run of it. So there's like different stages to each level or whatever. And there's like a daily puzzle to play. So that was fun for a bit. Just to have like something daily to do on my phone while I'm waiting for like coffee to brew or food to cook in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned Influencer Story, which is the last of the Hollywood-esque games that I've been playing, which is a little bit more into the art style, and the gameplay is a little bit more like the Kardashian games that I remember. So that's been enjoyable. But again, it's one of those things where like once it gets to a point where it's like I am not being able to do anything without running an ad to just pass this level or whatever, then I'll just probably uninstall it. Like I have no qualms about giving up on a game when they start to ask me for beyond just running an ad. The other one I've been playing is Heave Ho, which my friend, she was for her birthday or for Christmas or something. We're at her house, and she is like basically a co-op / competitive game where it's basically like a physics game where you're just like supposed to like hold on to each other like if you're on a Little Big Planet and just like swing yourself across the stage. It's kind of like American Ninja meets Little Big Planet, but 2D or like a Flash looking art style. But there's all kinds of like nonsense going on in the sometimes a llama passes by and there's like a fart cloud that shows up, so then you can't see what you're doing.
When that happens.
Sometimes a bird flies by and poops on you, so then like everything goes white for a second, so you're like, I can't see where I'm supposed to be swinging to. Yeah, eventually, like if you take too long to finish the stage, they give you like a little string comes down. If you pull the string, everything becomes like safety bars. Like now you are suddenly a preschooler. Just swing yourself to the end without having to die anyway. But it's good if sort of co-op games like Overcooked or the other one. I think we also played something called like
Snipper Clips.
Or Snipper Clips, something like that on Switch.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was that sort of like co-op like nonsense where like if you have the right people around, nobody's really gonna be too angry, or they're just gonna be like hilariously laughing because it's so frustrating to finish. So that one's pretty good. I think I've gotten it specifically for Christmas to play, and then I didn't get around to it until my sister and nephew were here a few weeks ago. And then Run Jesus Run is the last one on my list. The most recent playing game on my list. Breaking news
live in color.
So that's my games.
Nice. Matt, do you want to go next? I have only a few games, but I have a lot to say about all of them. So,
to be honest, I would give you the first step. I actually want to hear your Tokimeki Memorial stuff. I'm curious about that.
Okay. Alrighty, well, let's get started then. So if you remember back to episode 4, one of the games that I mentioned that I was interested that was coming out this year is Tokimeki Memorial Forever With You Emotional, which is the Switch port of the 1995 game Tokimeki Memorial Forever With You. That released for Switch a couple weeks ago, and I purchased it immediately and played it. I've actually beaten this game twice at this point, but I expect to be doing a lot more playthroughs, so I put it in the playing section. So a little bit of background. The way that I discovered this game was I first heard of this game via Tim Rogers' 6-hour video essay for Action Button, where he does a deep dive on this game. I won't spend 6 hours talking about it, but I highly recommend you watch his video because it's fascinating. It's really entertaining.
Yes.
And I think it's what put the game on the map for a lot of people in the West. So that video came out January 1st, 2021. I watched it I think if not the day of, then like a couple days after, and I was hooked immediately. I was like, this looks like the perfect, like a game that I would absolutely adore. I can't wait. I wish I had like some easy way to play it. And when they announced the Switch port, I was ecstatic. I was through the roof. I've been looking forward to this for a super long time. So I'm happy to report this game has not disappointed. It has been a completely fun ride the entire time I've had with it. The basic premise of the game is that it's a Japanese high school dating sim. So your character has worked his butt off in middle school, and he was able to get into his dream high school. And also attending said high school is his childhood friend, Shiori Fujisaki, who is, the most popular, prettiest, smartest girl in school. And your school has a legend that if on graduation day, a girl confesses her love to someone under the Tree of Legend, then those two will enter a relationship that lasts for eternity. So the goal of the game, as stated by the instruction manual, is to end up dating Shiori Fujisaki, who is one of the harder girls to end up dating in this game. But of course, like most dating sims, there's multiple people you can choose from. So there's a cast of about 12 different characters that you can date in this game. And yeah, you play through 3 in-game years. So it starts off in 1995. And it ends in 1998. The basic gameplay loop is that your character has 12 different stats. There's a couple ones that are tied to academics. So you have like a stat for the humanities, a stat for like the sciences and math. There's like an exercise stat. There's an appearance stat. And you also have like health and stress. And so before the start of every week, you can choose the one activity that you want to focus on during the weekdays for that week. And the activities will raise some of your stats and lower other stats. So you have to do this kind of like, balancing act to try to figure out, how to boost the stats that you want to increase to the level you want to increase, and also be mindful that your other stats don't drop too low, et cetera, et cetera. And the level of your various stats will determine which of the other girls you end up meeting, as well as some other like random cutscenes and stuff. And so that's the basic thing that you do before the weekdays. And then Sundays and holidays play a little bit differently. So you can do one activities. You can do the typical weekday activities that you would do on those days as well. But Sunday and holidays are also notable by being the only day that you can use the telephone. And the telephone is very important in this game because that's how you can
Wait, what?
Puzzle space right there. Yeah, you could only
use it on Sundays.
You could only use the telephone. This is the 90s, so I guess people didn't have cell phones on them.
Minutes.
And I guess you're too busy, like, doing your academic responsibilities on weekdays or whatever. But yeah, you can only use the telephone on Sundays or holidays. And the telephone is important because that's how you can schedule dates with the other characters. Like, you can only do one activity per day. So on Sundays, it's often beneficial to use your Sunday to call up someone to schedule a date. So how it works is, if you want to go on a date with someone, you have to take one in-game day to first call them up and ask them on a date. A little calendar will pop up, and you have to select the day that you want to go. First, you choose the girl you want to ask on a date. You'll call her up. Then a little in-game calendar will pop up, and you have to choose the date that you want to go on the date with her. And then you choose the location that you want to go to. And then she, at the end of this conversation, will tell you whether or not she's free that day. The one thing, just this is a little bit of a tangent, but what's kind of mechanically hilarious to me is that if she says that she's not free that day, that's the end of your day. Like, that's your one activity was calling her getting rejected. There's no like, oh, sorry, I'm not free that day, but how about we do the next week? There's no, oh, okay, this person said no, so let me call up someone else instead and ask them. It's like, no, like if someone says no, it's like, too bad. That's your whole 24 hours is
ruin your whole week.
There's no second chance.
Wow.
Right, it's your whole week. Yeah, you have to wait until the next week to call someone else on the phone and hope that they will accept your phone call. But you can line up your dates, and then when the day of the date goes around, you like go to the date. There's a couple different dialogue options that you can choose from that will have different effects. There's like the most optimal answer. There's also answers that'll like anger people, and there's like a neutral answer. And yeah, but as you go on these dates with people and respond to their conversations and stuff, you either boost or lower their various affections. What's really interesting about this game that sets it apart from other dating sims, in my opinion, is that, so I feel like with typical dating sims, you could just sort of like focus on the one person you're trying to date and just sort of like, tunnel vision on them. This game does not allow you to do that, because if you neglect any girl for long enough, she will there's one character whose name is Yoshio. He's your classmate and I guess friend. He's a bit of a stalker. He keeps intel on like every single girl in the school, and you often have to call him up to to get info. Yeah. Actually, to even be able to call a girl in the first place, you first have to call Yoshio and get her phone number from him. But periodically, you can call up Yoshio to see like how you're standing amongst the various girls in the school. And if you neglect any girl for too long, then next to her name on Yoshio's ranking, there will be a little bomb icon. And if you leave her unattended for too long, the bomb will detonate. Which is basically her spreading rumors about you to all the other girls in school and just tanking your reputation. So it becomes this. It's wild.
It's like real life.
Stress is gonna blow.
I was gonna ask about the stress meter, but now I understand.
Yeah. Well, stress is actually different from stress. Oddly enough, stress refers if you study too hard, for example. Actually, if you do most activities, your stress increases, and if your stress gets to like a high enough point, you have like a mental breakdown, and it affects your performance on like your studying and other activities that you want to do. Conversely, if your health drops too low, then you get an injury, which makes it harder to do sports and other things. So there's a huge balancing act to do with managing your stats, managing your reputation with everyone in the school so that you don't get bombed and they don't tank your reputation.
Oh my God.
And it's really funny.
The horrors of teenage life gamified.
Exactly. Some of the promotional art for this game when it was first coming out featured Shori Fujisaki, who's like the main character girl, the canonical true ending, the one who's on all the cover art. She's like smiling sweetly and just holding a bomb behind her back, like tee.
Yeah.
And the bombs have cute little smiley faces on them. So they really play the cutesy horror.
That makes me think of like Kaguya-sama.
A very nice Heather's throwback.
It's wild, yeah. So as your relationships progress with the girls, you might unlock special date scenes, kind of similar to the ones that you've seen in Stardew Valley. And then if they dislike you, they have like you can see their like the facial expressions of their sprites as you run into them like throughout the school or in other locations in the game, and you can read on their face like how they're feeling about you. If they really like you, they'll like be smiling. If they're like in love with you, they'll be like blushing a little bit. But if they dislike you, they'll be kind of like frowning or glaring at you. And if they dislike you strongly enough, if you run into them after school, they'll just glare at you and then run away without a word, which cracks me up. Just like a hit and run. because you have to do this sort of juggling act of managing like your social life, managing all your dates with all these people. I think this is a game that definitely, I love a game that makes you take notes, and taking notes is definitely in your best interest in Tokimeki Memorial, because you want to make sure that, you know, you're keeping track of when you last went on a date with a person, and to where and with whom. And everyone has their various likes and dislikes, so it's good to like jot those down, because you don't want to have to like waste an in-game calendar day calling up Yoshio to get a reminder of like what this person likes, etc., etc.
Of course.
Yeah, it's really fun. Also, I think what's pretty cool about this game is that it feels like very alive. It just feels very alive. So there's like about 12 different girls that you can date who all have like, very different personalities, and different ways of speaking. They've got different club affiliations. There's a lot of different outfits depending on both the season and where you're going on dates with people. So there's like, you know, little beach outfits, there's like winter outfits, there's like more formal ones if you're going to like a concert and stuff. There's like casual school clothes, there's like the summer uniform, there's the winter uniforms. It just feels like a kind of like slice of life simulator. And the attention to detail I think is really nice. Also, it's got gorgeous pixel art. It's a nice little 90s nostalgia trip. For the re-release for this remaster, they have the option of, you can do like the modernized, instead of doing pixel art, there's like new updated character models and a new updated font and everything. I played with the retro font and the retro models because I prefer that look to the sort of like, it feels, the new character art feels a bit too clean, too pristine for me. I like the sort of crunchiness of the pixel vibes. What else to say? There's pretty heavy RNG with this game, which makes for a lot of replayability. And there's just so many different ways that you could spend your high school life. There's lots of different clubs you can choose from. There's like an in-game class trip on year 2 where you can go to 3 different locations. There's like 12-ish different girls to date, so that all, you know, that's built in replayability right there. There's a lot of like random scenes just like scattered throughout. There's a lot of different like in-game like holidays and festivals and stuff. So there's a lot of replayability. I think, like I mentioned, I've cleared it twice now. I have gotten the true Shorty ending, but I will be playing it a lot more in the future because there's a lot more to see. It'll be fun to give you a quick little overview of my first playthrough, maybe a little bit of my second too, just to give you like a taste of what a typical playthrough of Tokimeki Memorial might feel like. So for my first run, I decided I was going to go in pretty blind, just do like a casual playthrough. I didn't take any notes for the first time around. So I had like, I read there's the in-game manual that you can read. So I'd read through that, and I'd seen a couple hours of Tim Rogers' video essay that I mentioned previously. I didn't watch the whole thing because like he does a run where he does get the Shorty ending, and I wanted to save that. I wanted to like be unspoiled for that, so I watched about half the video and then I paused and I watched the rest of it after I finally beat the game. But I was going with like, you know, very little knowledge. My goal for the first one was to date Shorty, and I knew I probably wouldn't get it because she is notoriously one of the more difficult girls to date in the game. But I was like, let me see how far I can get, just like of my own ability. So started off year 1 as kind of a nobody. I things weren't going super hot for me in year 1. I was one of the bottom students in my class in terms of the exams. I always ranked pretty much towards the end. The big sports day festival at the end of the year, I came in last place. Shorty was disappointed at me. So it was a little bit sad there. I started off joining the baseball club, but I pivoted pretty quickly, pretty early on, because a couple weeks into my time in the baseball club, I ended up meeting Saki, who is she's one of the girls you can date, and she's also the manager of the men's baseball team. And I was like, cool, I've met baseball girl at this point, so I should switch to different clubs so I could potentially meet other girls. Also, just like I said, like I call her baseball girl, but it does feel a little bit reductive to just label the girls by their club affiliation, because like I mentioned, they do have like very they each have very unique personalities.
They're so complex.
Stuff, just like for ease of they're complex characters. Just for ease of discussion, I was like, I've met baseball girl at this point. I want to switch clubs so I can maybe meet other girls. So I switched to the computer club, and I stayed in that club for the majority of my playthrough. By the end of my first in-game year, I'd only met 3 other girls. So I met, you always have to know Shorty because she's your childhood friend. There's no way to not know her. So I'd known Shiori, I knew Saki from the baseball club, I met Yukari, who is in the tennis club and who speaks with like staggeringly formal Japanese, like, and she talks really slowly too, which kind of frustrates me because, as you've noticed, I talk a mile a minute, and I have no patience for people who speak very slowly. And then I also met Nozomi, who is the swimmer girl and like one of the popular athletes in school and everything. So I was kind of a little bit stressed at the end. Well, stressed, not my character. Diallo in real life was stressed at the end of my first year. I was like, oh my gosh, I've only got like 3 girls at this point. Like, I feel like I'm flopping. I learned afterwards that it's actually better to keep the number of girls, to a minimum, so you're not having to juggle as many dates. But I was like, oh no, like it's been a full in-game year, and my character has only met 3 other people in the school. Like this can't be a good thing. But slowly over the course of my run, he became better. So by the end of year 3, I'd gotten to be the top student in my class. I eventually started winning the sports festival. We had a cute little time on the school field trip. Nice. I went on a club retreat where some shenanigans went down, and that was fun. I'd been going pretty strong with the computer club. I switched to there partway through year 1, and then stayed through all of year 2. But on year 3, I felt like things were going pretty well with Shiori, so I wanted to try to really hone in on trying to date her and focus on getting the Shiori ending. So I switched to the concert band club because that's the club that she was in for this playthrough. Her club is randomized. So we're both in the concert band together for the remainder of the playthrough. Some other notable things from my 3rd year is that I got rejected from the rich kids' annual Christmas party for the first time because my appearance was not high enough. I did it for the first 2 years. I thought I was a shoo-in for the 3rd year, but apparently it gets more strict as the years progress. So I had to spend Christmas alone that year, which was very sad. Your character just goes home. Your character goes home and wears a little Santa Claus outfit and says "Merry Christmas" to me. And just cries in the corner by his Christmas tree.
It's wild. Harry Potter at Christmas. Sadness.
And very that. Overall, I tried to be kind of a people pleaser for this playthrough. Like I went on dates with everyone who asked me out, and I was like trying to regularly ask out the girls too, so they would not bomb me. So by the end of the year, pretty much everyone that I met was in love with me, so I thought I was doing pretty good. Shiori in particular had started calling me by my nickname. She was giving me like unsolicited compliments when she would see me at school, like to compliment my appearance, like my sportiness. I was like, okay, cool. Like, she's really starting to appreciate me more. We also celebrated New Year's together twice, and she gave me chocolate for my last 2 in-game Valentine's Day. So I thought I really had it in the bag. By the end of that playthrough, I only got bombed once. So people really liked me. I avoided social disaster.
Classic thing to say in like a dating sim visual novel. I only got bombed once.
Yeah, right. But much to my dismay, I ended up with the tennis girl who speaks with the staggeringly formal Japanese. So that was my first attempt. The second attempt, I decided, I'll talk about this one even faster. The second attempt, I was like, all right, I'm going to focus on not Shiori, but there's a girl that I met a couple of times my first playthrough. I wanted to try to date the second time around. Ended up pivoting about halfway through that to try to date another girl. And then a couple of months later, I pivoted to try to date Shiori because once again, I felt like things were going well with her. And ultimately, I was able to get the Shiori ending for the second playthrough. So it was fun. But yeah, I plan to do a lot more playthroughs. I am really enjoying this game. It did not disappoint. It was worth the wait. It's been a lot of fun. A little fun, cute little nostalgia trip into the life of a 90s Japanese high schooler. That's Tokimeki Memorial.
Hell yeah.
The other game that I have that I've been playing, or one of the other games I've been playing, I also have a lot to say about, and that is Blueprints. This is a game that I hadn't heard of until a couple of weeks ago, but then after, it kind of came out of nowhere for me. Like I went from never having heard of it to it being like everyone I know was playing it all of a sudden, and it was just like all the rage. So I had to bite the bullet and see what all the hype was about. The basic premise is that you play as this guy named this teen kid, child protagonist thing named Simon P. Jones, and your very rich uncle has passed away, and in his will, he has left his mansion to you. But the catch is that in order to inherit the mansion, you have to find room 46 of his 45-room house. So the house is laid out in this kind of 5x9 grid, and no one knows where this legendary 46th room is located. It's kind of a roguelike, and the way that it works is, well, it's not kind of, it is a roguelike. The way that it works is that you enter a room, And then there'll be doorways that lead to other rooms. So when you open a door, you can pick from a random pool of 3 other rooms. And there's each of the different rooms have different characteristics to them, offer different benefits or what's the other benefit? Debuffs or like stuff like that. And yeah, as you progress through the rooms and stuff, you'll eventually hit some doors that are locked, which you need keys or other items to open. Entering a room costs movement, and you only have a limited number of movement per day. So if you ever get to a point where you're out of movement, or if you ever have like drafted the floor plans in such a way that there's no new rooms for you to progress to, then your day that's the end of your run for that day, and you have to go to the next day. And then when you go to the next day, the floor plan completely resets. So you're kind of starting from square one all over again. There are some things that you can eventually unlock that are permanent upgrades that will carry over from run to run, but for the most part, it's a clean slate each new day. And what the most important thing that carries over with you as you're going through each new day is the knowledge you've obtained in the previous days. So it would be like a fun enough roguelike on its own. What I think really puts it over the edge is that it also is like the most massive virtual escape room that I've ever played. And I love an escape room. Like I was mentioning previously, I love a game that makes you take notes. And this game will make you... I have a full notebook of notes that I've taken for my blueprints playthrough. I also have like hundreds of screenshots because there are puzzles and puzzles and puzzles and puzzles galore in this game. It's wild. Like there's puzzles, like there's some rooms with built-in puzzles. One of them that you encounter very early on is a parlor, which has 3 boxes. One of at least one has a true statement, at least one has a false statement. You have to figure out which one has the hidden gems inside of it. There's another a dart puzzle that you have. So there's some built-in puzzle like that. There's also just an overarching mystery of what's going on in this house, how to get to room 46, and there are hints about how to about how the different rooms work and how they interact with each other, and how to sort of progress through the house, that are presented in the form of in-game documents that are scattered around the house, as well as just the way that the rooms are decorated. You have to really be observant and sort of taking notes of everything that you see as you're navigating this mansion and trying to figure out how to get to the elusive room 46. And it's a really fun time.
Sorry, I have to say, I literally just understood the title. I thought, what's a prince that's blue? What that does mean? But it's blueprint, the plural of. Okay, I get it now. Oh my god!
I also didn't understand until Diallo was talking.
Yeah, right. I had to hear it out loud as well for the first time before that clicked for me as well. There is in-game lore, and there's a big overarching story that does involve monarchy as well. So there is in-game prints to be talked about as well. But yeah, it also play on the word blueprints because you're drafting blueprints for the mansion as you're progressing through it. And it's super addictive, super fun. It's very easy to fall into that, just one more day, just one more run trap that a lot of roguelikes will throw you in. My one complaint though is that you can't save mid-run, and a run, if you have a bad run, it can take you just a couple minutes, but if you have a really, really good run, you could be in that for 1 to 2 hours easily. So definitely before starting a new run, you want to make sure that you have enough time set aside to actually see it through to its end. But yeah, it makes you take notes. It's really fascinating. I think it also makes a really good podcast game because there's very little audio. There's some occasional, there's sound effects when you're interacting with items and stuff, and there's occasional ambient music that plays, but for the most part, there's not really audio. So I'll often be listening to streams or an audiobook or a podcast or something as I'm playing this game. And I can't recommend it highly enough. This is such a Diallo game, and I think it's definitely going to go down as one of my favorite games of all time. I was hoping to hit credits by the time this episode. I was hoping to hit credits by the time this episode came around. Sadly, I have not gotten there yet, but I do kind of find solace in the fact that even once you hit the credits, my understanding is that you've only basically just scratched the surface. Even getting to the end of the game, the in-game end of the game, there's still dozens and dozens and dozens of hours left of mysteries for you to unlock after that point. So this is a game that can keep you busy for quite some time if you have the capacity or the stamina to do so. My first weekend that I played this game, I put close to 24 hours in it in the first weekend alone because I was just that hooked on it. But yeah, Blueprints, a lot of fun. Check it out. It's again, I have the habit of picking games for this podcast. It's kind of hard to talk about because everything you say could be a spoiler, and this game definitely falls into that category. But maybe if everyone else plays it, we could do a new game plus for it at some point. because I really love this game. Can't recommend it highly enough.
I know one of my friends played this game and they also really liked it. They thought it was really good.
It's
One thing I was wondering is I've heard some people also say though that when you're playing this game, sometimes you can have to wait a really long time before you can meaningfully advance if you get unlucky, kind of thing.
That is true. That this game is also
spawns.
very RNG dependent, and you might just be in a position where you're waiting. You might have an idea of like what you want to do to make progress, but the rooms that you draw just aren't in your favor, which can be a bit frustrating at times. So yeah, that is another complaint. Is the RNG can be a little bit make it or break it for you, but if you're willing to roll with that, yeah. And then the last game that I've been playing is so on April 20th, M4thew turned 19. And if you remember from last episode, M4thew was the game that Roy picked for me for the Secret Santa swap. So I decided that would be a nice time to start up that game. I don't have a ton to say about it just yet because I'm still pretty early on in the game. I believe there's a chapter structure, and I think if memory serves, I'm still in chapter 1. So maybe like 3-ish hours in at this point, but I am enjoying it. I was surprised that it feels like tonally very different from Earthbound right off the bat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm excited to see more of it, and I will keep you posted as I progress through that one.
Yeah, I'll be very excited to see. And yeah, it does basically have a chapter structure.
Okay, yeah.
Forget if there's like literal chapter endpoints where like it says chapter 1 or anything, but like the way the game is structured, it's like pretty clear. Like this part of the story ended, this part of the story starts, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
All right,
Matt. Do you want to close us out for the section?
I will. I shall. And I actually don't have too much to say about these. I think this is gonna be pretty quick. I'm still playing.
But what
Murky.
about all those first games on this list? There's 3 of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. How much I'll say. So I'm still playing Murky Divers as a multiplayer game with my friends. It's still our co-op game of choice at the time. So we're still diving around lost ruins deep underwater and trying to gather corpse pieces to get money and avoiding the cops as we do it. That's the premise. We're getting better at this. We're having still a lot of fun with this. It's just a good time and a good concept that feels pretty fresh, even though it has some similarities with other games that came around recent years or whatever. Still a recommendation. Still something we're keep going to play. We also established a sort of tradition before we dive into Murky Divers. Each evening, we have a round of the board game Mills through a Steam release that is literally just called Backgammon plus Checkers plus Mills. I don't know the rules of backgammon. I don't like checkers, but Mills fucking rules, and so I forced my friend to play it with me. Nothing else to say there. It's just a good board game, and I recommend it to everybody. Also, still playing the mobile puzzle game simply called Purple. Probably not too far away from the final puzzle in that one. Still enjoying it decently enough. It's just a perfect game to dabble a couple minutes in while you're taking a dump or whatever. There were there were one or two puzzles fairly early on even that actually had me a bit stumped because I didn't understand what it was trying to get me to do. But overall, it felt just like the predecessors of this series of games, like a pretty well-balanced series of intuitive puzzle games. So that's that. And then I got two racing games that I've been playing right now. Like I said, aquatic racing games are right now the name of the game since it is getting warmer, blah blah, seasonal gaming, etc., etc. And the current aquatic racing game that I've been doing right now is a Czech game that's a bit older called Aquadelic GT. It's being sold for a whopping $5 on Steam. And going into and going into a game like that, there are some expectations of it might maybe being a bit, I don't know, buggy or not giving you much to do or whatever. But Aquadelic GT generally seems like quality, full-fledged budget gaming. You get a decent campaign going through different environments, different aquatic environments, lakes and islands and I don't know, shorelines and whatever, where you do different kinds of races and different kinds of boats. You have a whole progress system and buying new boats and upgrading them in some simple ways. The physics are fun and work and are fine. Like, this is generally a good speedboat racing game. And for $5, you do get, like, it seems like a full, like, 7-hour campaign or whatever. It's good stuff. I'm very close to the end of this one, so that's probably going to be on the beaten list next episode. And another racing game that I'm playing right now that I literally just started today is not aquatic. This one is Need for Speed Pro Street, which came out in 2007, and I have started this before when it came out. When it came out, I was a teenager, and I just came off having beaten Need for Speed Underground at the time. And I remember being super hyped for this Pro Street release that was like the new hot thing coming out. And I have, because of that, a bit of nostalgic memories with this. But I never actually beat this game back then. And so just recently I figured it might be fun to revisit it and actually finish this unfinished business. Pro Street is unfortunately one of those games that is kind of difficult to run nowadays unless you have an old console lying around. I was very close to actually buying a PS3 or something just to have this stupid game playing, because emulation seems very problematic with this title, and the actual PC port is near unplayable due to outdated DRM, so that sort of stuff.
That sucks.
But luckily, a huge shout out to PC piracy communities. And this opinion is wholly my own. This doesn't represent anybody else's necessarily, or how long to beats or whatever. But hell yeah, because there's a dedicated community repackaging or whatever, modding and whatever old Need for Speed games that are really hard to run these days and just making them work out of the box. And I found one of those things for Need for Speed Pro Street that just works on my modern Windows 11 system, and it's awesome. So another win for piracy. I do not care. If they don't let me buy it officially anyway, what am I gonna do? So yeah, I started that earlier, not far into it yet, so my actual commentary on this will have to wait for next episode. And that's really all that I'm playing right now. So I guess it's finally time that we move on to the actual discussion topic of this month.
Before we do that, can I do a quick bathroom break?
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Well, for it.
All right, be right back.
I had just taken one myself because I definitely need one.
What? As we were recording? Like,
yeah. When I muted myself like 5 minutes ago.
I didn't notice. Impressive.
Pissing and stuff.
Pissing life on air. How long to piss?
Metal piss solid.
Oh my god.
All right, I'm back.
Welcome back. It is time to move on to our actual discussion topic this month, which is gonna be a little bit of a reminiscing about the Nintendo Switch, the first one, the OG.
The OG, for real.
Now, I think everybody here has more experience with this platform than I do. So maybe one of you should, intro this thing properly.
Well, I was here, yeah.
Matt, you're going to have so much to talk about this topic.
Yeah, so the three of us, me, Leah, and Roy are owners of Nintendo Switches. Matt does not have one, so he's going to be maybe our moderator of sorts for this discussion. But yeah, as I mentioned at the top of this episode, we're doing a retrospective on our experiences with the Nintendo Switch 1, just sort of talking about some of our favorite memories with the platform, some of our favorite games, just taking a fond look back as we say farewell and turn our attention to the Switch 2, even though I don't think any of us pre-ordered it. So this might be a little bit premature for this group in particular. But
if I could, I would, but I can't. So I didn't.
Who can?
Yeah.
That price tag?
Who can do anything in this crazy world called life?
I guess I can sort of kick us off with this discussion if we want to go for that. So, one of the bullet points we have on our discussion topic is to talk about like maybe like the memories of the hype or like our release experiences. And I think that we've all established that we didn't get it at release, if I'm remembering correctly. But for me, I will say, even though I didn't get the Nintendo Switch as it came out, I got mine in December of 2017. So within the first year of its release, but not like,
Yeah,
right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. For me, the Switch kind of represented a return to gaming for me because, so I think I mentioned this in episode 1, we did sort of like our gamer backstories or whatever, but I've played video games for the majority of my life. I grew up playing them, but I did take a break from gaming when I was in college. So from 2010 to 2014, fully, I guess, aging myself. Not that it's a secret, but in 2010
now everybody knows.
Everyone will know. But yeah, in 2010 to 2014, I decided I need to focus on my studies. So I'm not going to be playing any video games. I'm not going to be watching any television. So any games or like TV shows that came out during that point are just kind of like a void in my media consumption history. Damn. Spoiler alert, I found many other ways to waste time in college, so I could have been playing video games. But yeah, so I took this hiatus from gaming for those years, and I kind of like forgot about video games a little bit until a couple years after the fact. I was like, oh wait, I'm not in college anymore. I can sort of get back to gaming. Oxenfree was one of the games that sort of eased me back into gaming. Yeah, I played like in 2015. I played a couple games. Like Portal was one of them that had been in my backlog for ages, and I finally got around to that. I played Oxenfree, I think, in 2016, which is another game that sort of like eased me back into gaming. But when the Switch rolled around, that was my first. I guess I didn't really play the Wii U at all. My family had one, but I was off in school at that point, so I didn't have much experience with it. But so the Wii, not the Wii.
Most people.
Yeah, most people didn't play Wii U. But yeah, so the Switch was my first like gaming console. In that it had for a while. I got it at the end of 2017, and yeah, it was kind of nice to sort of return to video games for me. The first game that I got for Switch was Stardew Valley, and the second one that I got was the Switch port of Skyrim, because I'd never had a PC previously that was capable of running Skyrim. So when I got my Switch, I was like, oh, I could finally play Skyrim, and that was exciting. I never got very far in it because I could never resist the urge to start attacking NPCs, or like I'd go to a town and like attack a chicken, and everyone in the town would get really offended at me for some reason and start.
Rightfully so.
Outsider attack. I like.
It's like I just set one chicken on fire. Like,
God, dang.
Yeah, the Switch sort of got me back into gaming is the long and short of what I wanted to say for this part. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts about surrounding like their intro to Switch, their memories of the hype, anything else to contribute along those lines.
I mean, I have some things. I got the Switch, it was like late. It must have been like Christmas 2018. The funny thing is, I wanted it because I wanted to have a console that me and my boyfriend could play co-op game. And the hilarious thing is, we've maybe played 3 games on it in the time that I've had that system. But the other thing was, I was like, oh, we can play co-op games together and have like a console in the house, or I could finally go through all my PC games that I can't play on my Mac, because at the time I only had a Mac laptop. Little did I know that 2 years later or 3 years later, they would come out with Steam Deck, and which would have been a lot easier for me to just play all my PC games on there.
True.
But the Switch did a lot for getting me back into games also, because we had the Wii, and then I skipped Wii U, and like the Wii U and PlayStation 3 was around the time like my nephew was just getting into games, and he kind of took over all the gaming platforms in the house, and I was in college, so I wasn't really, focusing on much myself. So I kind of thought that I was done with video games for a while until, got into this relationship and was like, well, maybe we can have something that we can play, we'll emulate some of the older ones because we knew about the Switch Online stuff or whatever. And yeah, just slowly got me back into gaming, where, you know, I didn't even want to play Breath of the Wild, but that's what came with the Switch when I got it for Christmas. So I remember thinking I was definitely going to try getting a Switch when it was released, and then I saw what it looked like. And at the time I was like, no, this looks like Red Dead. I don't want to have to deal with the survival aspects of like all this stuff. I just want to play Zelda. So I ignored it. And then when I got it for the Switch, I was like, I guess we're going to play this together. So my boyfriend and I, we played that. We played Tears of the Kingdom together. And we also played Smash because we had played it at a friend's house. And we came home and he was just like, I need this game. We need to like complete it or whatever. So we played like the story mode of Smash. And we figured out who our favorite fighters were or whatever. And that was a fun... basically, I want to say it was like a weekend, but it might have been like 2 weekends that we just went through Smash Brothers storyline.
I gotta ask, what was his favorite fighter?
Minecraft Steve.
No one has been out at that.
I think mine was Kirby and
good.
The Villager, but I think his was Snake, and I want to say it was one of the Fire Emblem people, but I can't remember. I'm not well versed in their names, so I'm like, yeah, one of them for sure. I think we also really liked Zelda just because she had the Sheik abilities, and that's always just switch her to Sheik and then just play that way.
Snake and Kirby, pairing that will echo throughout the ages, if you ask me.
Yeah. So I got into Switch pretty late, but it kind of got me back into Nintendo, into Zelda, and it had I not gotten Breath of the Wild, I probably would have given up on Zelda again. And to think that that's still the only reason that I would get Switch 2, which is like if they come out with a new Zelda, I will get that. Like that wasn't like I would have just completely sailed on by with all the Zeldas at that point. Probably until I probably would have picked it up for Echoes of Wisdom. But also maybe not, because the only reason I played Echoes of Wisdom is because it reminded me of Link's Awakening, which I also played on the Switch. So yeah, Switch did a lot for pulling me back into the Nintendo hype, I guess.
I will say that Breath of the Wild was pretty important for my Switch journey as well. So that's sort of piqued my interest enough to push me over the edge to finally consider getting a Switch eventually. So I was living in Japan when the Switch was released, and there was a guy in my town who had a Switch. He got it, I think, pretty much at release, and he had Breath of the Wild as one of the first games. And he would play it every now and then. He let me try it out a couple times. And I remember being so fascinated that you could pick up a stick and stick the stick into the fire, and then if you take the flaming stick and put it on an apple, you can get a baked apple. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is like the future of gaming. And then also I love that if there's like a fire, really the wind can the wind can blow the fire out to the grass and set the grass on fire. I was just like so fascinated by that. So whenever like he had to switch out and let me like play a little bit of Breath of the Wild, I would always take
the amount of times where I would just get like the elemental sword and do the spin attack and just watch the grass and be like, it's burning. That's so cool. No idea why.
All I'm saying is Red Dead Redemption 2 can have all the horse balls at once. We have baked apples.
Yes.
Win.
Let's go.
Which is funny because now I'm like a huge fan of Red Dead, and it's so funny that like I hadn't gotten around to it at the time, and I was just like, I don't want to play Red Dead again in Zelda. And now it's like, give me more Tears of the Kingdom. Like Tears of the Kingdom came out, and I got back into the Rockstar games, and I was like, yeah, this is where I live. Zelda and Rockstar game. Now, there was an alternate timeline where this was not the case anymore. So.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like it definitely worked out very well for you, in my opinion. So I guess that leaves me. I got my Switch much later than both of you. Funny enough. I'm gonna have a bit of a preamble on this. So, as I've said in the first episode, multiple other episodes, I live in the poverty gaming #sphere kind of thing. Do not exactly have a ton of money to get consoles and stuff. So I skipped, much like multiple people here, it seems, the entire Wii U PS3 generation. Yeah. Not so much because I wanted to skip it, as much as I couldn't afford to get anything. Yeah. You know, I didn't even really buy any Steam games during that time. And frankly, I kind of only got a Wii late too, because it was not easy to acquire a Wii for me. So I'd been gaming still. I had been playing, games online, some Steam games, emulation, stuff like that. But I hadn't been able to get really a good console experience for many, many years when the Switch came out. And frankly, I hadn't been. I had not been able to get like, ooh, game just came out. I get to buy it and talk about it as well, kind of thing. So when the Switch came out in 2017, I was kind of watching from afar. I kind of gone through the Wii U era, living vicariously through watching videos of games, talking with friends who own systems. Not exactly a lot of people owned a Wii U, mind you. But the thing is, as I've mentioned before, I've helped run a moveset making competition for Smash Brothers for about 15 years. So obviously there are people who got a Wii U in that ecosystem for Smash. You know what I mean? And then they would purchase some other games in the process. And I believe I've said this before. I'm definitely a big Nintendo guy. I don't think of myself as a fanboy. They do plenty of stuff wrong. I like other stuff, but my first console was a Nintendo 64. GameCube, one of my favorites. Game Boy Advance, one of my favorites. I never really gotten to play a lot of Microsoft before somewhat recently. I have had Sony console, which I quite like. My PS2 definitely is a big one. But the Wii U era was not a good era for to be a Nintendo fan. I think most people would agree. I don't think it was quite maybe as bad as people say in terms of game quality, but the Wii U was not really, I would say, particularly great hardware, which I hold the niche opinion that Nintendo is actually much more of a hardware company than people realize. It's just they only measure hardware in terms of specs, and that kind of misses some of why that matters. The Wii U's gimmick was not impressive. It was an overstuffed console with too many features, and that is one of the reasons it failed, along with the fact half the time you couldn't tell it was different from a Wii if you were a casual customer. If you were a gamer, sure, because if you look it up, you'll find it out. But your mom, maybe not my mom, but just standard mom going to Walmart is going to see Wii U and think it's an accessory. It's a tablet,
Yeah.
So the Switch, to me, looked like a bit of a return to form, because the concept was much more compelling than the Wii U's. The Wii U's console did not excite me even when it was revealed. The Switch is dead. It's a GameCube that can be a Game Boy Advance. You know what I mean? That sounds fun. Outside of that, they showed Super Mario Odyssey really early. That was exciting, because 3D World was good. It's fun. When I did finally play it, I enjoyed it. But it was a very unexciting game. It was a good Mario game, is how I'd put it. Mario Odyssey looked like a big, explosive, fancy, interesting game. Breath of the Wild, I was not super interested in immediately, outside of the way it looked, because I would say I'm not traditionally like an open world guy. And of course, when Smash was revealed, I was super excited because, again, huge Smash fan. But in 2017, I was going through a pretty rough period of my life, even for total life. I won't get into it, but not only could I not afford a console, I was just not in a good spot in general. So the start of the Switch's console life, pretty fuzzy for me. Funny enough, this is gonna sound not good, but the reason I was able to get a Switch was due to COVID, because before I didn't have enough sustainable income, and the COVID checks gave me enough, leeway to finally afford one.
That makes sense.
I had to get one. I had to get one very early because scalpers were going to go insane on the Switch and game consoles in general. But Switch was very exciting for me in terms of like the initial release. It seemed like a return to form, and when I started seeing the games, when I got my Switch, the Switch had been out 3 years, so I'd already seen a bunch of the game. So I already knew, I'm like, there looks like there's some really good stuff on here. Super Mario Odyssey sounds really good. I'll probably buy Breath of the Wild and try it out, even though I'm not interested. Smash looks amazing. Three Houses was interesting because the reveal didn't excite me, but I'm a fire, and I'll go into that more later. Actually, I should, now that I think about it. But the main thing was, I got in 2020. First game I played was Smash, unsurprisingly, but I would say after a period where I wasn't able to get a lot of games, I was able to get a lot of games, and that definitely ignited me playing many more games than I had probably the past 5 to 8 years before I purchased the Switch. So kind of similar to Diallo and Leah, the Switch pushed me back into gaming more. Seems to be a common trend, apparently.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, if I could say a couple words why I'm not a Switch user, the resident non-Switch user.
Yeah, go for it.
I did grow up with Nintendo as well, and I did have a couple Nintendo consoles, especially the handheld ones. The Nintendo 3DS was the final Nintendo platform that I have owned. I still have one, which I'm using for emulation, out of all things, and that's pretty much it. But when it comes to the home consoles, Nintendo was out pretty quickly. I did grow up as even though I had the odd console in the house, I did grow up as a PC player first and foremost. And as I grew older, that's the platform that stuck for various reasons, while the consoles became less and less appealing. So when the proper Nintendo handhelds, the actual traditional handhelds, died due to Switch being basically both anyway, I think that was like the last nail in the coffin for me to care. And then additionally to that, there's just not enough titles on those systems for me to warrant a whole console purchase, which I guess that might be the perfect segue into talking about our favorite Switch games, or the least favorite games, because I have a handful of games that I have some experience with, or would have wanted to play. I mean, due to friends owning a Switch, I have had the privilege to play a bit of F-Zero 99, which was a game that has, even though I don't own the console, that excited me because I'm such a fanboy of the classic F-Zero games. So having a modernized, gimmickized, multiplayerized version of the Super Nintendo F-Zero was pretty exciting. I have enjoyed my odd hour at a friend's console with that. And there's even another anti-grav racer on the Switch called Fast Remix, which I would love to play because it looks amazing.
Is that how it's pronounced?
Fast Remix, I would assume so. RMX.
I thought it was RMX. I didn't know.
I mean, I'm just assuming that's short for remix, a stylized version. Either way, it looks awesome. I'm still praying that it at some point goes to another platform, but it's just a Switch exclusive. And this,
I mean, one thing I'd suggest is that with the Switch 2 coming out, there probably will at some point be Switches for pretty incredibly cheap.
Maybe
could be worth a look.
I will strike at that at some point, but I don't have really any concrete plans for that. There's also the Kirby game, Forgotten Land, that I would really like to play.
Yeah.
Tetris 99, of course, is up my alley, and Mario Kart Live, that weird ARG Mario Kart game.
Oh yeah.
I would have been obsessed with that if I was a child. Though I probably even then I would probably put it on my Christmas wish list or whatever. I'd never get it because it would probably be too expensive. But I mean, that Mario Kart Live was one of those examples where I thought, here's a thing why I used to like Nintendo a lot more in the past, because this is a cool, innovative, unique, technologically boundary breaking thing, if you want to call it that. A bit dramatic maybe, but there was a cool idea that I would have loved to explore myself. But again, all of these things,
neat tech.
Exactly, neat tech, and that's why I used to like Nintendo a lot. That's why the 3DS was my final platform, because the 3D effect made it unique and cool and something that I couldn't
and he had
experience
Street Pass and stuff too
somewhere else. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if you use Street Pass, but
barely. But I mean, yeah. And the Switch is really, in my opinion, just back to a basic console that is doing the handheld and home console thing, but otherwise there's nothing really there that pulls me towards it.
So you mentioned briefly something that I kind of wanted, that basically, so I grew up having mostly Nintendo consoles. And one thing that was really interesting to me with having the Nintendo Switch is that it allowed me to play, because so many things are ported to Switch, it allowed me to play series that I'd never been able to experience before on other platforms. For example, Switch was my entryway to play Final Fantasy games. I'm looking back through like some of the favorite games that I played on my Switch, and a lot of them are not even Switch exclusives. They're just games that I was able to play for the first time because they were available on Switch, and that was like the only console I had at the time. For example, what else is there? There's Hollow Knight is one of my favorite games of all time now. I played that on Switch. Katamari, I played for the first time on Switch. I mentioned Final Fantasy Switch was my intro for those too. Things like Hades, I played that on Switch.
Hades,
just a lot of stuff.
PC.
Yeah, exactly. So this also goes back to my time a little bit. So I got back into gaming in 2017 because of the Switch, and then a couple years later, in 2020, I bought a PS4, which was like right before PS5 came out. So kind of odd timing. But my friend was selling his for super cheap, and then a couple months after getting a PS4, I ended up building my gaming PC. So now, like, PC tends to be my default for video games. But at the time, I think because this wouldn't have happened had the Switch not been easy back into gaming, basically. So I do kind of default to PC now.
Right.
But yeah, because Switch existed and got me back into gaming and let me play all these games that I hadn't been able to play growing up, it was sort of like a gateway for me. And I think I just want to throw that out there that was an interesting feature of the Switch.
Yeah, totally see that. Yeah,
I like that. All I was gonna say, just as like a real quick point, is I do think, having played the Switch, there are some cool stuff it does with some of the motion controls in some games. I say that much. That's still kind of similar to the Wii, so it's not like super spicy or anything, because obviously the Wii had a lot of pointer controls and motion controls and stuff. But that is something I found with a few games.
But I guess that's the thing too, right? With the Nintendo consoles, they always have these like show-off games early on that really make use of the new tech, like with the 1-2 Switch or whatever at the time. But then most of those, at least from what I know, most of those features are barely or not at all used in actual releases later on, which is also just disappointing every time.
It depends on the console. Wii, DS used them pretty heavily. The ones that were in their tech demos, I would say.
Yeah, and at that time I was still with Nintendo.
3DS, I would say, used it fairly well, although I think that decreased over time. I think that decreased over time more because the people buying the console stopped using the things like the 3D as much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Wii U did not make use of its features very well, but I think that's partially just because its features were not necessarily great to begin with for many games, is how I would put it. So, to an extent, I feel that's like the well was poisoned to begin with.
Right.
I'd also say, personally, I don't even think of 1-2 Switch quite as a tech demo game in that way, because it really doesn't do much tech demoing. It was more like a weird side project kind of thing, it felt like, if that makes sense. It didn't really... Because they tried to like make it like a video game where you don't need to use the screen.
Right. But I mean, it showcased the technical abilities of the controller, of the like HD rumble and everything, right? So that's what I...
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I don't
know. Like Mario Party and stuff use that. And stuff like that, but...
A little fun fact about 1-2 Switch. So my favorite voice actor, Grey DeLisle, is on the cover of 1-2 Switch. She voices Azula in Avatar. She voices like Mandy in The Adventures of Billy and Mandy. She's all over the place, and she's fantastic.
Wait, Mandy and Azula have the same voice actor?
Also Frankie from Foster Son from Imaginary Friends.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, I got confused. Is it? I think yeah. Frankie and Vicky are both Grey DeLisle characters. Let me Google that before I spread lies and misinformation on the internet.
Nobody would do that.
We can't spread lies and misinformation about Vicky. One thing I will say, I'm kind of adding to Diallo's point while he looks that up, is I would definitely say, similar to Diallo, so I've never really had many powerful PCs, and my current PC is still extremely cheap and has like a graphics card that I'm going to bet like half the people have never heard of, kind of thing. It's not particularly powerful.
Yeah.
So I would say, similar to Diallo, for me, many games that I might not have played before, I did grab on Switch and was kind of able to play them where I might not have played them otherwise. Funny enough, I also played Hades on Switch. I also own Hollow Knight on Switch instead of PC. I would say I'll probably get into that a bit more because that's like a bullet point we plan to discuss.
Hmm.
But honestly, I would say for a pretty good amount of time when I got my Switch, I got most games on Switch because my computer could not run
makes sense.
most meaningful
Same.
recent games, kind of thing. And for a lot of the games, I feel like the downgrade to Switch was not something I personally cared as much about. That is not to say it did not exist or that it would be wrong to not like them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I've confirmed. I said no lies. Everything that I said was correct. Great Little voices all of those characters.
Let's
Thank
go!
Also, really quickly, Matt, I do agree with what you were saying about like how a lot of the games don't take a full advantage of the sort of technical things that the Switch does. One thing that I felt was really a missed opportunity for the Switch in particular is the touch screen. Like there are so few games where you can use the Switch's touch screen. I think people even forget that the Switch has a touch screen. So I wish that more games would have used that.
Although one thing I'll say is the one game I saw that tried to use the touch screen was the World End With You Nintendo port. And I don't know how they did it, but they fucked that touchscreen up some fierce.
I have a question actually as well. I remember, I think with the Wii U, they were trying to do a lot of asymmetrical stuff where the controller shows you different things than the TV. Did they actually continue that with the Switch or use it in any way? Because I always thought it had potential.
No, because it can't really work that way.
Oh,
yeah. If it's docked, it's just straight to the TV.
Right.
It can't stream to the TV that way. I've kind of wondered with the Switch 2, because they have shown it streaming games and stuff, if they might do something like that with the 2. But with the 1, it's either handheld or docked. It can't really be both. And honestly, Nintendo never took proper advantage of that feature with the Wii U to begin
Unfortunately.
with. I was always surprised they didn't make more games like Nintendo Land with the asymmetrical multiplayer, honestly.
Yeah, that was so potentially great. Yeah.
Yeah, you could do some seriously great stuff with that. Like, just like any kind of like psychological poker-esque or wire game-esque thing where you have like hidden information that could have been really good.
Or even just in single player, having like your dedicated inventory screen down there and then the action up there. And
they did that a lot, but quite frankly, it kind of sucked.
Okay. I like the idea.
It's a fun idea, and then you realize that what happens is you constantly are moving your head up and down between the two when normally you would just press a button. I think most people did like that.
As if you were scrounging in your actual bag. That's awesome. I love that.
That's awesome in like a survival game. Not so good when they put in like Paper Mario Paper Jam and I'm constantly looking at the screen for the cards. I'm using a turn-based RPG.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Like, I think it could be good for like Breath of the Wild, which they did use it for, I believe.
Okay.
Because then it does have like a moment of mercy, or like they used it for like the Animal Crossing Mario Party type game. You need to either look at a thing or put the amiibo on it to roll the dice. And like, does that really add anything? No. It just makes it more annoying.
But yeah, back to that Switch stuff.
We were talking about our favorite and least favorite games is where we had started. I would say I'm not necessarily going to go over all mine right now, in part because I might just get my Switch to make sure I'm not forgetting any games. But I would say, unsurprisingly, my favorite game from the Switch that I've played was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Of course.
Which may be the least surprising fact of something I could bring out, but I would say that there's 3 other games that were like Switch releases. I didn't just play them on Switch. Like, they were either modern and multi-platform, or they were Switch exclusive, that I gave 10 out of 10. So I gave max score. One of them was Smash Ultimate. The next one was Fire Emblem 3 Houses, which I do want to talk about at least a little bit, because I feel like 3 Houses has a bit of a funny history for me. So, obviously my name Frozen Roy, I've said this before, is because I mained Roy in Smash Bros. Melee with the blue skin. But I had never really gotten into Fire Emblem games, despite having I've always been really interested, but I never got into them, kind of. I had started up Fire Emblem 7 a few times, but I kind of bounced off the Lin mode tutorial, In part because the tutorial has some interesting stuff. I don't think it actually prepares you the best for playing the game in a way. But when Fire Emblem Three Houses trailers were coming out before the game was released, I was not really that big on it, honestly. It kind of looked pretty generic. I don't think they did a great job necessarily selling the game before release. But I'd heard a lot of really good things when it did get released. And it was one of the first games I purchased when I got the console. It was like that, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Breath of the Wild, I believe Mario Kart 8, a bunch of indie games. I was able to get a lot because of the timing. But Three Houses is actually the first Fire Emblem game I ever beat, and I really like that game. When I purchased that game and when I played that game, I started, let me see, I actually believe I have when I started and when I finished. Is this the right? Yeah. I started in July 26th. I ended September 19th. And I was playing that game for some points, like, daily. Like, just going through it over and over. Because my first time I played it, I played over 100 hours.
Damn.
To give you an idea. And I was hooked and engrossed. And that game, I think, got me to go back and try previous Fire Emblem games with a better idea of how Fire Emblem worked as a game series. Because I felt like I hadn't really got it before. Three Houses has Three Houses doesn't have a super long tutorial, but the early maps that are, like, they don't force your hand, but there's, like, clear ways that you can kind of go and, like, natural guidance for the player. I think better taught me how to play Fire Emblem in a way that mattered. And that helped me then play every other Fire Emblem. And at this point, I've been like 7 of them. And Three Houses is one of my favorite games ever. Fire Emblem 7, when I look back at that with fresh eyes, I really like that game. I've probably been about 7 times now, kind of thing. So, Three Houses was really big for me. One of the other ones I gave a 10 out of 10 was a game, one of the most hyped I've been for a game in a long time before release, and one of the few games that I got to just play when it came out. It's Metroid Dread.
Oh, yeah.
So, Metroid I never got a big chance to play outside of Metroid Prime. Because I never got to purchase the Game Boy Advance versions. When I was younger. I never played them through emulation because for a long time I only had a keyboard, and I feel like just playing Metroid games with a keyboard never felt good. This is not surprising, kind of thing. But I paid a lot of attention to it. One of my friends is a big Metroid guy, and I don't know if anyone knows about this game's development history, but this game had been in development about 15 years. It had been teased in like Metroid Prime 3. The name had been like shuffled through development lists, seen on my Nintendo fiscal reports for a year or two, and then faded out into the distance. So I got fucking pumped up, like, it's Metroid Dread! And they're continuing the 2D games. They haven't continued in like 15 years. Let's go!
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, I hadn't actually been a 2D Metroid game. So one thing that happened is when Metroid Dread was revealed, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to play through a bunch of 2D Metroid, because I've never done it before and I've always wanted to. And Super Metroid is on the Switch. So I booted up Super Metroid. I got hooked on that game. Also a 10 out of 10 game. I played Metroid Fusion on my computer because now I could connect a controller to it because I had gotten a PS2 controller adapter. I played Metroid 2. I played Metroid Zero Mission. I played like every Metroid game. I played Metroid Dread Day 1. I think I beat that game. Like, it took me... In fact, it took me literally 2 days because I just played it like nonstop when I purchased it. 15 hours, 2 days kind of thing, or something like that. This Metroid Dread is so good, man. Anyone who likes a Metroidvania, play this game. Just period. The final boss is intense and a great challenge. The exploration is quite good. I like how they made a lot of room for player expression while still having a good guided experience. Like I would say I prefer Super Metroid to Metroid Dread, but one thing about Super Metroid is that it does ask more of the player in a sense. You know, there are a few points in that game that are a bit obtuse. One or two of them I already knew because obviously Super Metroid is such an old game, you kind of hear about it. But Metroid Dread doesn't really have any particularly obtuse parts to it, because when I played it, obviously there was no guides or anything. I was able to just figure it all out kind of thing. The graphics look actually pretty nice. The parry mechanic is interesting. I thought the Emmy stealth sequences were blood pumping and very well done. Just everything about this game is top notch. Everything. I have very few complaints with Metroid Dread. Probably less complaints than Three Houses even, but Three Houses has higher highs for me, kind of thing. And I don't know if I should let someone talk before I go to my fourth game, because I've probably been rambling for a while at this point.
They do seem like almost formative experiences, all of them, which is dope to hear.
Those two, definitely. The last game I gave 10 out of 10 to from the Switch is a multi-platform game, and it's Octopath Traveler 2. Now, the first game was exclusive. The second one was not. As you've probably noticed from the games I play, RPGs are one of my favorite genres. Octopath Traveler 1 was good, but I would not call it an exceptional game. There were some very clear flaws. The story's a bit disjointed. The way that you unlock the final boss is one of the stupidest things I've seen, considering how it works in the story. I cannot comprehend why they would make you unlock the final boss. It's not a bonus boss. It is the true final boss kind of thing. Why they would make you unlock it like that. Octopath Traveler 2 improved on everything. And it's one of my favorite RPGs, I would say. The story is actually quite good. I wouldn't say it's like necessarily some of the most life-changing, in-depth kind of one, but it's really well done for what it is kind of thing. Lots of good character work. Ends up with a good point kind of thing. Some of the stories take some wild twists and turns. I played this alongside a friend at the same time, and we were like chatting back and forth, discussing stuff. And there was definitely some stuff we did not expect at all kind of thing. The gameplay remains really solid. I do find it funny. People seem to think this game is on the harder side. I thought it was kind of easy myself, so maybe that's just me playing so many RPGs kind of thing. The final boss is really good. There's fun boss fights. They make sure to throw different things at you. The party is much more integrated with multiple intersecting paths, more story conversations between the characters. The first game lacked that in a way that made it feel more empty. But I do want to say, for me, the thing that really pushed it over the edge from a 9 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 was not on release, but when for some reason, a year later, they added a bunch of bonus bosses to the game, and two of the bonus bosses are full fights against the previous game's party members. And those are some of the craziest and most fun bonus bosses in anything I've seen. And they really challenged me in a way the main game didn't, to use the game's mechanics on an extreme level. I probably grinded out those over like a week, where I was playing hours and hours just fighting the same boss over and over because I was enjoying myself a lot kind of thing. They introduced a lot of interesting mechanics and gimmicks. It's really ingratiated well. I still haven't been one or two of the final of those boss bosses, but I've been the two party member ones. And that made me really realize how in-depth the battle system could go, and I think that pushed me over the edge to 10 out of 10 in it. This is one of those games I feel like is underappreciated. I think people will look back on this more and more fondly as it goes on. This is a game, like you'll see people recommend, I like turn-based RPGs, but I feel like a lot haven't came out the past few years, and they've been switching to action ones. What do you recommend? I recommend this one every time. So anyone who likes turn-based RPGs, I highly recommend trying it out. And it is on PC and PS5 and Xbox and all the other stuff, so you can play it even if you don't have a Switch.
True.
Anyway, that was like the games I gave 10 out of 10.
Yeah, does anybody have more favorite games? Or I would even like some least favorite ones. Anybody had some awful experiences?
I was kind of looking through my How Long to Beat profile and trying to see, because there's a lot of games that I played on Switch, but none of them were really like exclusives beyond like the Nintendo ones, like WarioWare and Zelda and stuff. So like a lot of them were great games, but they're available elsewhere. So it's not like the experience on Switch was any different. The only thing that I can really say is Welcome to Primrose Lake, which is basically like a time management game that's apparently also available on mobile, but I didn't find it on mobile. I found it on the Switch store. And they have like really decent storylines, so I went through all of those. I love time management games. I love like managing a salon or a diner or whatever. I'll play all of those all the time. But this one actually had like a mystery to it, where like this girl like meets this other girl that looks exactly like her, and they have no idea why they look exactly alike, and they have to find out like why the town keeps confusing them. So that was like, and I was like, wow, I didn't know they had games like this on Switch, and then I found out later it was on mobile also. So that was. But one of the first ones that I found on Nintendo Switch, like the day after I got the Switch, just looking for stuff on the store to download. Because I remember since it was Christmas, all of their servers were down because everybody was like registering their Switch.
Right.
So all you could do was just like go through the store and like maybe download like free stuff. So I downloaded this one called 911 Operator, which is actually really fun to play.
Oh yeah, that one rules.
Yeah, so I played that. I know there was another. It's oddly not on here, but there was a game that I played that I know that I eventually retired because it got so frustrating to play, and I would say that was like my least favorite game because it was basically like the boating mechanics from Wind Waker, Zelda Wind Waker, where like you just have like a little raft and you just have to float around to like different islands and explore or whatever. But all of the islands were procedurally generated, so nobody online could ever help you with anything because all of our islands looked different. And the developer went offline. Everybody in the server was silent, and it was just like, I just want to play this game, but there's no way for anybody to help each other because everybody's game looked different. And it was so frustrating because it was an awesome game to play, but no, it just kind of just got left behind. So I was very mad about that game. Yeah, Moving Out is another series that was pretty fun to play, but I think that's also on Steam. That's a really good co-op game if you like Overcooked. I can't think of much. I'm looking for like stuff that I've retired, and none of them are really specific to. Oh, fitness boxing.
Oh boy.
Ring Fit, fitness boxing, and Just Dance were like my COVID exercise routine of everything. So I think I played fitness boxing every single day after work during COVID, just to have something to do.
Get fit.
On that note, I do want to say the Ring Fit stuff seemed cool as an outsider.
Yeah,
that was some, interesting tech that they brought. Yeah.
Yeah, Ring Fit was good.
The only like fun stuff that they came out with, I guess like the Mario Kart wheel was just taken from the Wii version. We just like put the controller in and you can control it. But the Ring Fit was actually like one of the few accessories I would say for the Switch that actually did what it was supposed to do and was actually fun to use. So
right.
Yeah, I didn't get any of the cardboard VR stuff that they came out with.
Labo, yeah.
Labo.
Oh god, yeah.
I have a couple of favorites that I wanted to mention as well. So I already talked about some of the non-Switch exclusive games that I played on Switch that I really loved. But I wanted to talk about a couple of Switch exclusives as well. I thought it would be fun to take a look at my top 3 in terms of gameplay, or in terms of time played games on my Switch, all of which are Switch exclusives. Right. So in third place, we have Splatoon 3. And a little anecdote about this. So I didn't play Splatoon 1 as we established previously. I didn't really play Wii U, and it wasn't really on my radar because I typically don't play. Well, at the time, I hadn't really played like any shooter games. Not that Splatoon is like a typical shooter game, but I thought it wouldn't be something I enjoyed. But at one point, this is before I moved to Tokyo, I went to Tokyo for a job interview, and the company that I was interviewing with paid for my transportation for a bullet train, both from where I was living to Tokyo and then for the transportation back. And I decided instead of using the money for the bullet train back, I would instead take a night bus back, save the money, and then use the money that I pocketed to treat myself to something. And what I treated myself to was Splatoon 2. I decided to try it on a whim. One of my best friends was like really into it, and I was like, "Do you think I should try it?" And it's like, "Yeah, go for it." And I tried it, and it quickly became my top played game on Switch. It was eventually surpassed by other games, as evidenced by Splatoon 2 not being in my top 3 right now. But yeah, Splatoon 3 is my number 3 most played game on Switch. I don't play it anymore because I realized that I spend more time angry when I'm playing Splatoon than I do having fun.
The gamer multiplayer experience, the typical.
Exactly, which is such a shame because like when stuff goes well, it's really fun. Like I enjoy Salmon Run, I enjoy like Turf Wars and all the different modes and everything. But what really kills the Splatoon experience for me is that your ranking is so tied to the performance of people that you randomly get paired with, and I don't feel like I should be punished for the incompetence of some randos on the internet. And I just spent so much time. I would, I would be raging too much.
As someone who is a veteran from the League of Legends mind, certainly something I've heard before.
Yeah. So I had to. I realized, you know what? This game is not sparking joy. Let's retire this one. So every now and then there's a Splatfest, I'll revisit it, but then I feel like by the end of the Splatfest, I'm like, yep, that's why it sort of like reconfirms, that's why I dropped this game. So I'm in Splatoon retirement. We'll see what happens when Splatoon 4 rolls out, right? Whatever. But anyway, that's my number 3 top played game. Number 2 is Fire Emblem 3 Houses, which we already heard a lot about previously. Yeah. I will say my first playthrough took me 89 hours. I started off with Black Eagles, and I did the Crimson Flower route.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I haven't. Let's go.
I am like halfway through. The Blue Lions playthrough, but I haven't really made any progress in that in maybe like 4-ish years at this point. So maybe one day I'll finish it. And then my number 1 most played game, I don't know, because again, I never like actively retire games. I guess besides, I guess Splatoon was an exception.
Yeah,
it's rare for me to actively retire a game. I just sort of like accidentally stop playing them. But it does happen every now and then. I'll revisit a game that I've sort of dropped. So there is hope for 3 Houses that'll do all the routes eventually.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I'm also like partway through a Blue Lions one I haven't touched in a long time. In part, admittedly, because it was a randomized run with a friend of mine. But who knows? Maybe we both get on the horse and push each other.
I will say, don't count on this one. Like it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So don't hold me to this. Don't expect me to be updating you on my progress next episode. But it's a game that I own.
Hell to the fire, that's for sure.
And then my number 1 played game on Nintendo Switch is probably not going to be a surprise that the game that I have the most playtime in is Animal Crossing New Horizons. That was the big COVID game for a lot of people. I've been an Animal Crossing fanboy since the GameCube version. I've loved the series. I've stuck with it since it came to the West. Yeah, I love Animal Crossing. I spent a lot of time on this game. It's good stuff. I forget exactly what my playtime is at this point, but it's over 400 hours, I want to say. So definitely high up there. And then a quick honorable mention. These weren't in my top 3 in terms of playtime, but some other games on some other Switch exclusives that I really love. I mentioned Breath of the Wild previously, and also have to give some props to Tears of the Kingdom. And then Pikmin 4, I think, is pretty close to being a perfect video game. I love that so much. My favorite Pikmin game.
I really gotta play that.
And then Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Oh.
Yeah, Pokemon Legends Arceus I wanted to mention as well because I've talked about my love for the Pokemon series a lot of times previously on this podcast, and I think that the way that Arceus shook up the formula was really interesting. Instead of doing the typical turn-based battle, I mean it is turn-based battles. The way that they tackled exploration in that game felt really, really fun. As a kid, I would also often fantasize about if I could live in the Pokemon world and what it would be like to sort of encounter Pokemon in the wild, to be like traversing various landscapes with my party and encountering all these new Pokemon and everything. And I feel like the way that the Arceus came the close to realizing that vision for me, and it's a lot of fun. I'm excited to see ZA when it comes out later. But yeah, those are some of my faves.
I'm that weirdo who kind of liked what they did with Scarlet and Violet more than Legends Arceus from what I've played of both. But I do think it was cool that they did shake up the formula. I would say Diallo going through his playtime does make me just want to really quickly say what games are my highest. I won't necessarily say about a bunch of them because I already talked about them though. But I figure why not. Most played, unsurprisingly, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I think I have 500, 600 hours in that, something like that. Second most played is actually Pokemon or Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Complete Edition. Because I did mention I 100%ed that game before.
Damn.
Actually, quite a good game. You can get it on PC and other stuff. I do recommend this for people like monster catching games. Won't go into it too much because I've talked about it before. Octopath Traveler 2 was third. Already talked about it. Three Houses was fourth. Already talked about it. But I did want to mention, for me, number 5 is actually Game Boy Advance Nintendo Switch Online. It's my 5th most played thing on my Switch. Because I think I put 97 hours into Fire Emblem 7 on my Switch. And 20 hours on other stuff. That does make me want to point out just one thing I do think sometimes gets overlooked, because most people who are talking online are going to be the more hardcore gamer types, and they probably played a lot of the games. But I do like how much easy access the Switch has to a lot of Nintendo's old library.
Yeah.
Especially as someone who never had a Super Nintendo much, or a Nintendo, or I had a Nintendo Entertainment System, but I only had about 8 or 10 games for it, kind of thing. So there's a lot of games I've tried on there that I never had before. Obviously, you can emulate them and stuff, but I didn't even have something that could work as a controller on my computer until a year after, to give you an idea. And a lot of people, it's not necessarily going to be something to even think about. Although I would say, if we're talking about bad games on the Switch, I did try Ice Climber on the Switch.
Right.
Do not recommend.
Yeah, I remember that.
I also technically tried Blonde Wonderworld on the Switch. So if we count that, that was probably the worst Switch experience.
Yeah, my condolences.
It really is as bad as people say.
So what I'm a bit curious now. Partially, this was already talked about. The question how you decide whether to play a game on Switch or another platform. There was already talk about it might just be circumstantial because that's the platform you have. Was there ever a situation where you made a conscious decision to play something on Switch or not the Switch when you had the choice?
There was, but only kinda. I already owned Transistor on my PC. I couldn't really get to run great, but I knew that's the kind of game where whenever I inevitably upgrade my PC, it would work, because it's not exactly that intensive of a game. But I purchased it on Switch anyway because it felt like a game that could be good to be able to pick up and play when I wanted to, since it auto saves after every fight, and it was cheap, kind of thing. I did also already own Final Fantasy VII on PC, and I grabbed that on Switch because I felt like for a long RPG, being able to pick up and play is often pretty nice. So I did choose to buy all the Final Fantasy games that were not obviously Final Fantasy 15, because that wasn't really on here. I did purchase all of those on Switch over PC because I felt like the ability to play it mobile was a plus. I think that's pretty much everything where I chose to play on Switch versus other platforms for particularly specific reasons. There are a bunch of indie games I purchased on Switch because they were sometimes even cheaper on Switch than PC during a sale, and just good for mobile too, but not too much like that.
For me, I do have some similarities with my thought process. So I mentioned previously how when I first got my Switch, it was kind of my default console, and then eventually I got a PS4, and then I got a PC later. So nowadays, when I'm choosing a platform to play a game on, I tend to default to PC, but kind of like Roy mentioned, for JRPGs, I do like to play them on Switch because I do like the ability to sort of pause the game whenever I want. It just feels like a really good quality of life feature to not have to worry about necessarily getting to a save spot in a dungeon, to be able to sort of start and stop the session at my choosing. So I do like that feature about the Switch, is that I can sort of pause a long haul JRPG.
A game. Okay.
Right, exactly. Although I will say now I have a Steam Deck, so it's not and I can do the same thing on my Steam Deck, so it's not as exclusive to
the Steam Deck does change the game.
And then I guess one other time is that I bought the Great Ace Attorney for Switch because I wanted to use some of the touchscreen features. But again, I didn't know that A, it would become PC later, and then B, I'd be getting a Steam Deck later. So theoretically, I could use the touchscreen on my Steam Deck as well. But at the time, I was like, I want to make use of this touchscreen a little bit. So that was that. But yeah, so I guess So the short answer is I typically use my Switch for Nintendo exclusives and JRPGs, like long video games that I want to pause and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it depends on who I want to play with. Like if I want to play couch co-op, it's a lot easier for me to play stuff on the Switch. So if like I'm gonna go to my friend's house and I'm gonna bring my Switch, we can play a game there. Or if my family comes over and we can play the Switch games here. It's harder to do so on PC. So a lot of the times, if I want to play online, or if I don't want to pay for, for instance, I had Red Dead isn't on Switch, but like Red Dead was on PlayStation, but I didn't want to play for PlayStation Online, so we bought it on PC so I can play it online for free.
Yeah.
So similarly on PC with the stuff on Switch, like if I wanted to play with people online, it was probably going to be free, and we can play easier on PC than on Switch. But yeah, basically Switch for me is like the Nintendo exclusives, and then I don't have a Steam Deck, so if I want to play it on the go, or if I know that I'm gonna want to be playing it here and there, like before it was, if I was commuting and I was on the bus, then I would play on the bus. Or if I want to play like right before I go to sleep or early in the morning before like I've opened up my office or whatever, then I'm like, okay, get it on the Switch so that way I can just take it with me on long trips or whatever. I actually have Dreamlight Valley on Switch and PC because it like cross saves on the cloud. So that way I can play good graphics on my PC, and then whenever I was on the road, I could also play it on the Switch.
I wanted to ask, how is your game time split between docked mode versus portable mode?
Good question.
I don't need like hard numbers, but I'm just curious, like based off of like gut feeling, do you tend to lead towards one mode or the other, or like?
Well, one thing, this is actually something I forgot to discuss. At the time I purchased my Switch, I think I may have mentioned this previous episode, I didn't actually have a television that could play modern consoles. I only had old CRTs, and I didn't have a converter. So probably for the first year or two of Switch, I played exclusively in handheld or tablet mode, because I didn't even have a television. I'd probably say I play 60 to 70% of my game time in the tablet mode, because with my desk setup, I can kind of just have it set up next to my computer, and I'll play a game and be able to talk to people at the same time kind of thing. I like doing that. Probably like 25% of the time at the TV, and then like 5% in handheld mode, usually in bed, because I'll keep my Switch like next to my bed, and maybe I wake up and feel like playing a game in the morning kind of thing.
I would say my default is to play games in docked mode. The exception is that if it's a game with pixel graphics, I like to play those in handheld on my Switch Lite. My Switch Lite tends to be like kind of like my retro pixel machine. But yeah, it
gives like that Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, it feels like I'm playing a Game Boy Advance kind of. So I'll do pixel games in handheld and Switch Lite and default to docked for everything else.
Yeah, same. I think I tried playing Breath of the Wild on a commute from my job, which was like an hour, and like it killed my battery. So now any like graphic intensive games I could only play when they're docked, because like otherwise like I'm gonna have a Switch for the rest of the weekend. So so basically it's just also become my like anything that's like an indie game essentially I will play on the Switch, because that'll give me like 4 or 5 hours out of it. Even like when I was playing Metroid Zero, I played that in handheld mode for most of the time. The only time I think I've ever played it like with the little kickstand or whatever is when I was playing fitness boxing. And then I really quickly realized that was terrible kickstand, so then I got one of those little phone things to hold it. Just because I was like, it's going to fall over and I'm going to lose and I'm going to get mad that my score was messed up. Not my
Yeah, I definitely want to say the Switch's kickstand is not ideal.
Yeah, I'm super excited
I'm so
for that
glad the
next
Switch 2 has a better
iteration of it. You should have been doing it a long time ago.
Yeah. I will say, just real quick, because we were talking about the game, like purchasing games. I will say I actually have quite a lot of third parties on Switch. I would say I probably did buy most of my third party games on Switch to go with Nintendo ones. I have Dark Souls on Switch. I have Doom on Switch. I have Sonic Frontiers on Switch. I'd have to probably think about other ones once I really got to it. I have Valkyria Chronicles on Switch. Technically Dragon Quest 11, but that's kind of a weird one. Stuff like that. So I would say I'd probably say I did purchase most of my games on Switch. And then I purchased some on PC, especially after I got a new PC that's at least adequate. But Switch, I would say, was my main thing I purchased for most of the last 5 years.
A loyal customer, one might say. I think we should start wrapping this up. So unless anybody has any last thoughts about the Nintendo Switch.
I just want to say some of my other favorite games for the console that aren't retro games I happen to play on it were Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Hades. I played Katana Zero on Switch. I thought it was really good on that, being able to play in handheld. I already mentioned the original Octopath. I played Fire Emblem Engage on Switch. Definitely not as good as Three Houses, but I had a pretty good time with that. 3D World I first played on Switch. I enjoyed that a pretty good amount. Oh, I played Cosmic Star Heroine on Switch. That was a fun indie game.
Yeah.
Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, I've got to say. That's a bit underrated game in the sense that if you want just a multiplayer pack to just mess around with people, it's fun. And also, I wasted too many hours playing Yahtzee by myself in that.
Oh my,
for
that's
reasons I couldn't tell you.
Sad. Oh.
Look, because you need solo. Yeah, I mean,
should have played Mills. That's in there. My bad.
Look, you gotta remember, I'm the guy who played solo Mario Party. Went through all the story campaigns of Mario Party.
That is another level.
I'm a freak.
God damn.
Yoshi's Crafted World, that was pretty good, I would say. And that's just a bunch off the top of my head. And then the final thing I'll say is I agreed with Leah. I think she made a great point. One thing that does change my purchases is if I think I'm going to play multiplayer, say with my mom and couch co-op, or with friends who have a Switch, or if I think I'm going to play more multiplayer online, in which case I might go to Steam, which is why I purchased a lot of fighting games on Steam over Switch, because the people I play fighting games on with tend to play PC over Switch, so I went to PC more. Oh, and one game that was bad on Switch, well, not bad, but didn't work, I should say, was an indie game called Jack Quest, which I was enjoying until it reached a point where every time I walked forward, it would cause a crash error, and then I couldn't complete the game.
It sounds like a great feature.
Not an ideal feature.
It's always depressing when the game gets in its own way.
Real. But it's man, this is a little 2-hour platform where I'm enjoying myself a decent amount. Game refuses to continue. Oh well. Always disappointing. And I played Wheels of Aurelia on Switch. I didn't think that was a great game myself, but I do know that's kind of popular with some people. Doggerai, that was another one. And that's kind of all I wanted to go through, was just blitz through some games I had been on Switch. Good and bad.
Right. That was not enough switching for today, whatever that means. But
I guess we gotta switch it up.
There you go. Yeah, it's time to switch over to the game of this episode and end this thing. It's time for a little thing we named Guess the Game, where the aim of the game is to guess the game. I will be giving completion notes from the How Long to Beat community to my fellow co-hosts, and they will have the chance to guess what game these completion notes are from to gain points. The earlier, the more points.
I gotta say, I feel bad for Matt this episode. First, he has to wish it for Switch discussion for an hour. Now he has 0 points and has to host.
I'm truly suffering for this product, for this entertainment.
And he's editing this one too, so it's a triple whammy.
Oh no!
Yeah.
You gotta listen to the Switch discussion multiple times.
Oh yeah.
Fucking hell.
He's gonna ask if he can switch to editing a different episode.
Yeah. To top off my amazing sacrifices in favor of this episode, I have done the impossible and actually found a game that all three of you have beaten.
Let's go.
I will not say the platform though for this one. I will leave that a mystery this time. And I will give you the first completion note. There's a main playthrough coming from an anonymous user who played for 50 hours and wrote, "The length and depth of the story is dependent on how good you're exploring the world."
That's a way to phrase a sentence.
That is a way to phrase a sentence.
I think I'm gonna guess Breath of the Wild for this one. My gut's telling me, yeah.
That's a good one.
It's a ballsy move.
Oh, it has to be one that everybody completed. That's true.
Yep.
So it can't be like Fire Emblem Three Houses because Leah didn't complete that, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not a Fire Emblem. Wait, say it again?
Crap, I don't know which game Leah would complete.
The length and depth of the story is dependent on how good you're exploring the world.
That's 50 hours.
50-hour main playthrough.
Unfortunately, I think Diallo might have just gotten it with Breath of the Wild. And we can't all guess the same game, obviously. That would be a bit cheap.
Well.
So in that case, I'll guess Super Mario Odyssey. The depth of its story.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It doesn't have to be a Switch game, though. Even if it would fit the theme.
That's correct. I feel like that would be too obvious.
But you might think that we think it's too obvious and it's a double bluff.
A double switcheroo, one might say.
Yeah, double switcheroo.
I don't know. I'll say Stanley Parable.
That would be an impressive run for 50 hours.
Yeah, well.
And I haven't been.
Unfortunately, I have to confirm that Diallo is correct with Breath of the Wild.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I was hoping we'd get at least to round 2. Well, okay.
I'm making my comeback. It took me forever to get on the board, and now I'm here and I can't be stopped.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Matt's
true.
like, damn, I wish I was on the
Next
board.
episode, Matt's gonna get it at 1 in.
I refuse. At this point, I refuse to win.
We'll see if you just give non-answer.
But at the end of the season, you have to be the championship cock.
Yeah, of course, I have to be the championship cock. Yes. Fuck. Yeah, I guess that is wrapping us up. Maybe it's for the bad. This went quick. I thought it was. It would have been funny if I actually managed to get you to not guess the super obvious game. But I guess I failed.
Yeah.
You are too.
For a moment, I considered
too switch-brained.
I considered guessing Tears of the Kingdom, but I hadn't seen it.
There's a lot of completion notes that misspell the Korok seeds and just write some nonsense, which I found funny. They write shit like all crocs. Or,
oh man!
All done except the 900 fucking nuts.
We just kept calling them poop seeds in our playthrough. Essentially,
you gotta say 900 fucking nuts would be a hell of an episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, that finally brings us to the end of this amazing episode of How Long to Beat, the podcast. We have beaten this podcast. As always, let us know about your thoughts on the matter. What are your experiences with the Switch, and where do you see yourself going with Nintendo consumership or whatever? We're always open for comments wherever you find a comment section. Or maybe on the forums and the How Long to Beat Discord. You will find us. That's possible.
We're out there.
Thank you everybody for listening. We hope you listen to us again or whatever. See you next time and goodbye.
Happy switching.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.